You found the Stealth Podcast. Tonight, we'll travel through dark and lonely stories. Where in the world are you watching from? What time is it there? Subscribe and leave your like to support us. Let's begin. My name is Douglas Harmon, and at 46 years old, I thought I'd seen just about everything worth seeing in my hometown of Portland, Oregon. After 23 years working as a park ranger in the Pacific Northwest, I decided it was time for a change of pace. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago, and with the kids grown and gone, I figured there was nothing holding me back from finally living out that dream of converting a van and hitting the open road. I'd poured my savings into a 2015 Mercedes Sprinter, spent 6 weeks fitting it with everything I needed: a compact kitchen, fold-out bed, solar panels, and enough storage for my photography gear. The plan was simple: spend a year documenting America's wilderness areas, starting with the rugged terrain of Idaho. I'd always been fascinated by the Sawtooth National Forest. Its jagged peaks and pristine lakes had called to me for years, and now I finally had the chance to explore it properly. My friend Derek, a fellow ranger I'd worked with for over a decade, had told me stories about his own adventures in the backcountry of Idaho, and while he'd mentioned some strange experiences, I'd always chalked it up to his tendency to embellish. "Trust me, Doug," he'd said during our last phone call, his voice uncharacteristically serious. "Stick to the designated camping areas in Sawtooth. The locals have stories about those mountains that would make your skin crawl." I'd laughed it off, of course. After years of encountering bears, mountain lions, and the occasional lost hiker, I wasn't exactly spooked by campfire tales. Besides, the whole point of van life was the freedom to go wherever the road took me. The drive from Portland to Stanley, Idaho took about 8 hours, and I arrived just as the sun was setting behind the imposing Sawtooth Range. The small mountain town was exactly as I'd imagined. Rustic buildings clustered together beneath towering peaks, with the Salmon River flowing nearby. I stopped at the local general store to stock up on supplies, making small talk with the elderly cashier who eyed my Oregon plates with mild suspicion. "Just passing through?" she asked, scanning my items. "Coffee, trail mix, canned soup, and a 6-pack of local beer. Planning to stay a while, actually," I replied, showing her my National Parks pass. "Want to do some photography in the backcountry." Something flashed across her weathered face. Concern, maybe? "Be careful where you park that van at night," she said, handing me my change. "People go missing in those mountains, especially this time of year." I nodded politely, not really taking her warning to heart. Every small town had its local legends, and I'd heard similar cautions in just about every wilderness area I'd worked in. As I loaded my supplies into the van, I noticed a bulletin board near the store entrance, plastered with the usual community announcements, fishing regulations, and weather advisories. But what caught my eye was a faded poster, yellowed with age but recently stamped with a red still missing across the top. The photo showed a man about my age, bearded and smiling, standing next to a vehicle not unlike my own. According to the poster, Martin Keeley had disappeared while camping in the Sawtooth National Forest 11 months ago. A chill ran down my spine despite the warm evening air, but I shook it off. Wilderness areas could be dangerous for the unprepared, and unfortunately, people did occasionally vanish in national forests. It was one of the harsh realities of my former profession. With one last glance at Martin's smiling face, I climbed into my van and headed out of town, eager to find a quiet spot to park for the night before full darkness set in. Little did I know that the place I would choose to camp that night would change everything I thought I knew about the natural world and test my very will to survive. I decided to take a Forest Service road that wound deep into the Sawtooth wilderness, away from the designated campgrounds. After about 40 minutes of careful driving on increasingly rough terrain, I found a small clearing about a quarter-mile off the main dirt road. Perfect. The spot offered a stunning view of the valley below, and the dense pine forest surrounding me would provide excellent cover. This was exactly the kind of stealth camping I'd been looking forward to. No neighbors, no fees, just me and the raw beauty of nature. As I prepared a simple dinner of heated soup and crackers, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The forest was unnaturally quiet. In my decades as a ranger, I'd learned to read the wilderness like a book, and this silence spoke volumes. No birds calling, no squirrels chattering, no insects buzzing. just the occasional whisper of wind through the pines. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe a predator had recently passed through the area, sending the smaller creatures into hiding. That had to be it. After dinner, I set up my camera equipment, hoping to catch the stars as they emerged across the clear Idaho sky. The Milky Way was spectacular out here, away from any light pollution. I just captured a few long exposure shots when I heard it, a crack of branches breaking somewhere in the darkness beyond my van. Something large was moving through the underbrush. A deer, maybe? Or possibly an elk. I shined my high-powered flashlight in the direction of the sound, but saw nothing except trees swaying slightly in the breeze. "Hello," I called out, immediately regretting it. If it was a wild animal, I'd just announced my presence, and if it was a person, well, I wasn't sure that was any better out here in the middle of nowhere. No response came, but the breaking of branches continued, circling around my campsite at a distance of maybe 50 yards. Whatever it was big and moving deliberately. I retrieved my bear spray from the van and kept it close at hand, telling myself this was nothing I hadn't dealt with before. The sounds eventually stopped, and I convinced myself it was just normal forest activity. Still, I decided to sleep with the windows closed that night, despite the mild temperature. I climbed into my bed in the back of the van, leaving just the roof vent cracked for air. Sleep came fitfully, interrupted by vivid dreams of being pursued through endless trees by something I couldn't quite see. I woke at dawn to find massive footprints in the soft earth around my van. Not bear tracks, I knew those well enough, but something eerily humanoid, yet far too large. Each impression must have been 16 inches long, with 5 distinct toes, and they formed a complete circle around my vehicle. My pulse quickened as I followed the trail with my eyes, noting how they approached from the north, circled my campsite several times, and then headed east, deeper into the forest. A tingling sensation ran up my spine as I remembered Derek's warnings, the store clerk's concerned face, and the missing hikers poster. Was this some kind of sick joke? Had local kids followed me out here to scare the out-of-towner? I snapped several photos of the prints with my camera, trying to maintain the clinical detachment I developed during my years documenting wildlife evidence. But these weren't wildlife tracks, at least not any wildlife officially recognized by science. I made a quick breakfast of instant coffee and oatmeal, barely tasting it as I considered my options. The rational part of my brain suggested packing up and heading back to Stanley, maybe finding a nice, safe KOA campground with other people around. But another part of me, the part that had always been drawn to the wilderness, was intrigued. If these tracks were authentic, I might be on the verge of documenting something extraordinary. After all, the Pacific Northwest had a long history of Bigfoot sightings, and while I'd always been skeptical, I couldn't deny the evidence literally surrounding my van. One more night, I muttered to myself, deciding to relocate to a different area nearby, one with harder ground where I could better defend my position if needed. I wasn't about to let some local prankster or unidentified forest dweller chase me away that easily. As I started the van's engine, I couldn't have possibly understood the chain of events I was setting in motion, or the horrifying encounter that awaited me as darkness fell again over the Sawtooth Mountains. I found another clearing about 3 miles deeper into the forest, this one situated on a rocky outcrop that offered a 270-degree view of the surrounding wilderness. If anything approached, I'd see it coming. I spent the day hiking nearby trails, camera in hand, looking for more unusual tracks or signs. Despite my skepticism, I found myself scanning the treeline more often than usual, jumping at the occasional snap of a twig or rustle of leaves. The forest remained unnaturally quiet, as though the wildlife was collectively holding its breath. By late afternoon, I convinced myself that the footprints had been an elaborate prank, probably perpetrated by locals who didn't appreciate outsiders camping in their secret spots. I returned to my van and set up for another night, preparing a freeze-dried meal as the sun began its descent behind the jagged peaks. The temperature dropped quickly as darkness fell, and I fired up my small propane heater to take the chill off. Through my van's windows, I watched as stars appeared one by one in the deepening blue of the sky, creating a breathtaking canopy above the silhouetted pines. That's when the smell hit me, a powerful, musky odor unlike anything I'd encountered before. Not a bear or any other animal I recognized from my years in the wilderness. This was something primal and alien, like rotting vegetation mixed with wet fur and something indefinably human. It was so strong it seemed to seep through the sealed windows of my van, making my eyes water and my stomach turn. I switched off my lights, hoping to observe whatever was out there without revealing my wakeful state. In the pale moonlight, I saw a movement at the edge of the clearing, something massive shifting between the trees. It wasn't just large, it was enormous, standing at least 8 feet tall with a broad, powerful silhouette. For several minutes, it remained partially hidden in the shadows, as though assessing my vehicle from a distance. Then, with deliberate slowness, it emerged into the open, and I had to stifle a gasp. The creature was covered in dark, matted fur, walking upright on 2 legs with a rolling, ape-like gait. Its arms hung disproportionately long at its sides, ending in hands with visible fingers. But it was the face that sent ice through my veins, a flat, broad nose above a mouth that seemed permanently fixed in a grimace, revealing teeth that gleamed in the moonlight. And its eyes, its eyes, reflected the moonlight with an intelligent, calculating glow that was anything but animal. I reached for my phone with trembling hands, desperate to document what I was seeing, but found no service bars. Of course not. I was miles from the nearest cell tower. My satellite communicator was packed in my bag across the van, and I dared not move enough to reach it. The creature was circling now, much as the footprints had circled my previous campsite, but this time I could see the maker of those tracks. Its head turned constantly toward my van, nostrils flaring as it seemed to drink in my scent. Suddenly, it stopped, staring directly at my window as though it could see through the tinted glass straight to where I sat frozen in terror. A low, rumbling sound emerged from its chest. Not quite a growl, not quite speech, but something horribly in between. Then, with shocking speed for something so large, it charged. The impact against the side of my van felt like a minor car accident, rocking the vehicle violently on its suspension. I scrambled away from the window just as massive hands slammed against the glass, not quite breaking it, but creating a spiderweb of cracks. I lunged for the driver's seat, fumbling for my keys with panic-numbed fingers. The creature circled to the front of the van, those intelligent eyes never leaving mine through the windshield. It placed one enormous hand on the hood, denting the metal under its weight. I finally got the key in the ignition and the engine roared to life. The headlights illuminated the creature fully, all 8+ feet of fur-covered muscle and sinew, its face contorted in what could only be described as rage. I slammed the transmission into reverse, tires spinning against rock and dirt as I backed away. The creature kept pace, moving with impossible speed, repeatedly slapping the front of my van with enough force to snap my head back and forth. As I spun the wheel to turn around, my rear tires momentarily lost traction on the loose gravel of the outcrop. For one heart-stopping moment, I felt the back end of the van begin to slide toward the steep drop-off I'd thought would provide protection. The creature seemed to sense my vulnerability and redoubled its assault, pounding on the hood with both fists now. The van's frame groaned under the assault, and I knew with terrible certainty that it wouldn't withstand much more. In desperation, I floored the accelerator, aiming the van directly at the creature in a game of high-stakes chicken. At the last possible second, it leapt aside with surprising agility, but not before I caught a glimpse of its face pressed against my windshield, eyes filled with a terrifying intelligence and unmistakable malevolence. I sped down the rough forest road in complete darkness, too afraid to stop even when branches scraped the sides of my van and rocks threatened to rupture my tires. All I knew was that I needed to put as much distance as possible between myself and whatever was behind me. The Forest Service road seemed endless as I sped through the darkness, my headlights carving a narrow path through the thick Idaho pines. Every shadow looked like a massive, fur-covered figure ready to pounce. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white, and my breath came in ragged gasps that fogged the windshield. The cracked glass from the creature's assault spiderwebbed further with each bump in the road, threatening to shatter completely. I checked my rearview mirror obsessively, expecting to see those reflective eyes gaining on me. The rational part of my brain insisted that nothing could move that fast for this long. I'd been driving for nearly 20 minutes at dangerous speeds, but the primal part of my brain, the part that had witnessed something impossible, wasn't taking any chances. Just as I started to believe I might have escaped, my front right tire caught a deep pothole with a sickening crunch. The steering wheel jerked violently in my hands, and the van careened sideways before I could regain control. No, 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 I muttered as warning lights flashed across my dashboard. The tire pressure indicator glowed an angry red, and I could feel the van listing to one side. I had no choice but to stop. Continuing on a flat tire would only strand me further from help. I eased onto what passed for a shoulder on the narrow road and cut the engine, leaving the headlights on to illuminate the surrounding forest. The sudden silence was deafening, broken only by the tick-tick-tick of my cooling engine and my own labored breathing. I reached for the satellite communicator in my bag, thanking whatever gods might be listening that I'd invested in the expensive device. As I powered it on, the small screen glowed to life, showing GPS coordinates, but no emergency signal being transmitted. I pressed the SOS button repeatedly, but the confirmation light remained stubbornly dark. Either the device was malfunctioning, or something was blocking the signal. Given what I'd just encountered, I wasn't ruling out the latter. With shaking hands, I retrieved my tire-changing equipment and a powerful flashlight from the back of the van. I'd have to change the tire quickly and get back on the road. Every instinct screamed against stepping outside, but I had no choice. I cracked the door open, listening intently for any sound that didn't belong in a natural forest. Hearing nothing alarming, I slipped out and moved to the damaged tire, keeping my back to the van as much as possible. The tire was beyond repair, not just flat but shredded, with a deep gash in the sidewall that must have happened when I hit the pothole. I worked with desperate efficiency, loosening lug nuts and positioning the jack. Every few seconds I would pause, sweeping my flashlight across the dark wall of trees surrounding me. The forest remained eerily silent, devoid of the normal nighttime sounds of insects and nocturnal animals. That silence was more terrifying than any noise could have been. I had just removed the damaged tire when I heard it, a distant but distinctive crack of breaking branches, coming from the direction I had fled. It was following me. Somehow, impossibly, it had followed me for miles through dense forest at vehicle speed. My hands fumbled with the spare tire as I tried to lift it onto the wheel hub, cursing under my breath as my trembling fingers struggled with the simple task. The sounds of movement grew closer, accompanied by that same musky, rotting odor that had preceded the creature's appearance at my campsite. I abandoned all pretense of caution and wrenched the spare tire into place, threading the lug nuts with frantic haste. The jack slipped slightly under the van's weight, and I barely yanked my fingers away in time to avoid crushing them. More breaking branches, closer now, much closer. I tightened the lug nuts as much as I could without the proper torque and kicked the jack free, letting the van drop the last few inches to the ground. As I threw my tools haphazardly into the back and lunged for the driver's door, I saw it, a massive silhouette moving between trees less than 50 yards away. The creature wasn't running. It was stalking, moving with the confident patience of an apex predator that knows its prey is cornered. I slammed the door shut and locked it, though the flimsy mechanism seemed laughably inadequate against the strength I'd witnessed earlier. The key slid into the ignition, and I turned it with a desperate prayer. The engine coughed once, twice, before roaring to life. I didn't wait for it to warm up before jamming the transmission into drive and flooring the accelerator. The van lurched forward, the loose lug nuts on my hastily changed tire creating a rhythmic clunking that added to my mounting dread. In my side mirror, illuminated briefly by my taillights, I saw the creature burst from the tree-line onto the road behind me, moving with that same impossible speed. For a moment, it seemed to lock eyes with me through the mirror, and I swear I saw its lips curl back in what could only be described as a grin. Then it dropped to all fours and began pursuing my vehicle with a bounding gait that ate up the distance between us with terrifying efficiency. I pushed the van to its limit, taking curves too fast and bottoming out on dips in the road. The clunking from the loose tire grew louder, and I could feel the vehicle becoming increasingly unstable. But I didn't dare slow down, not with what was behind me. The creature kept pace for longer than should have been possible, only gradually falling behind as the road conditions improved and I was able to increase my speed. Eventually, the forest began to thin, and I saw the welcome glow of civilization ahead, the outskirts of Stanley. As street lights came into view, I checked my mirrors one last time and saw only darkness behind me. Whatever had pursued me apparently wouldn't follow into populated areas. My relief was so intense that I nearly swerved off the road, catching myself at the last moment. I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour gas station, the bright fluorescent lights offering a sanctuary I never thought I'd find in such a mundane place. I sat in the gas station parking lot for nearly an hour, engine idling, scanning the darkness beyond the fluorescent lights for any sign of my pursuer. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, and each time the door to the convenience store opened with its electronic chime, I nearly jumped out of my skin. Eventually, I worked up the courage to properly tighten the lug nuts on my spare tire and check the van for damage. The hood was dented in several places, bearing the distinct impression of large, five-fingered hands. The side windows were cracked but intact, evidence that what had happened was real, not some hallucination born of isolation. An elderly attendant eyeing me suspiciously from inside finally prompted me to move. I couldn't sit in their parking lot all night, and I certainly wasn't going back into the forest. I drove to the only motel in Stanley that showed a vacancy sign, paid for a room with a credit card that shook in my trembling hand, and locked myself inside, pushing a dresser in front of the door for good measure. Sleep was impossible. I spent the night reviewing the photos I'd taken of the footprints, cursing myself for not having the presence of mind to capture an image of the creature itself. By morning, the rational part of my brain had begun its inevitable work of doubt and explanation. Maybe it was an unusually aggressive bear walking on its hind legs. Maybe I'd been affected by altitude sickness or some toxic plant I'd unwittingly touched. The human mind is remarkable at explaining away the inexplicable. After a shower and some mediocre coffee from the motel lobby, I felt almost normal again. In the harsh light of day, last night's terror seemed distant, though the damage to my van provided uncomfortable proof. I decided to report the incident to the local ranger station. Not the full story, of course, but enough to alert them to potentially dangerous wildlife in the area. The ranger on duty, a weathered woman in her 50s named Carol, listened to my sanitized account with a poker face that suggested she'd heard similar stories before. When I finished, she simply asked, "Where exactly were you camping?" I showed her the location on my GPS, and something flickered across her features. Recognition, concern, resignation, I couldn't quite tell. "That's near where Martin Keeley disappeared last year," she said finally, confirming my suspicion about the missing hiker poster I'd seen. "And 3 others in the decade before that. Always in the same general area." She hesitated, then added, "Always people camping alone in vehicles, off the designated sites." I swallowed hard, my mouth suddenly dry. "What do you think happened to them?" Carol's eyes met mine, and I saw a decision being made about how much to share. Officially, animal attack, exposure, or accident. People underestimate these mountains. She glanced around, ensuring we weren't overheard. Unofficially, the Shoshombanic tribes have stories about guardians of these forests, entities that protect sacred lands from trespassers. They've warned about certain areas for generations. I showed her the photos of the footprints on my camera's display. Her expression didn't change, but her hands tensed around her coffee mug. "I'd suggest you move on to another area, Mr. Harmon. The Sawtooth has plenty of beautiful, safe camping spots in designated areas." I thanked her for her time and headed back to my van, conflicted about my next move. The rational course would be to heed her warning and leave the area entirely. But the journalist and photographer in me, the part that had documented wilderness phenomena for decades, couldn't let go of what I'd seen. If these creatures were real, if they were responsible for disappearances that had been covered up or explained away, didn't the world deserve to know? A compromise formed in my mind. I would stay one more night, but in a crowded campground with plenty of witnesses around. During daylight hours, I would return to the general area of my encounter, armed with my best camera equipment, to search for evidence. If I found nothing, I would chalk the experience up to an unusually aggressive bear and my own overactive imagination, then continue my planned journey through Idaho's wilderness areas. The designated campground was nearly full when I arrived, a stark contrast to my isolated spot from the previous nights. I set up between a family in a pop-up camper and a retired couple in an RV the size of a small bus. The normality was comforting, and I began to feel foolish about my panic the night before. After securing my spot, I drove back toward the Forest Service road where I'd had my encounter, stopping well short of the actual location but close enough to hike in. The forest in daylight seemed benign, filled with the normal sounds of birds and small animals going about their business. I spent hours photographing tracks, collecting hair samples caught on tree bark, and documenting unusual breaks in branches that might indicate the passage of something large. It was methodical, scientific work that helped calm my lingering fears. As afternoon waned, I decided to push a bit further, approaching the rocky outcrop where I'd encountered the creature. The scene of my hasty tire change was evident. Tools I'd dropped in my panic still lay scattered on the ground. I collected them, then continued toward my original campsite, driven by a compulsion I couldn't quite name. The clearing appeared undisturbed at first glance, but as I approached the exact spot where my van had been parked, I noticed something that stopped me cold. Arranged in a rough circle were personal items from my van. A t-shirt I kept in my clothing storage, a paperback book from my small library, my spare toothbrush. Items I hadn't even realized were missing in my panic. They were placed deliberately, like some kind of primitive message. A chill ran through me despite the warm afternoon sun. Whatever had attacked me hadn't just been acting on animal instinct. It had purposefully searched my belongings and created this display. The implications were staggering. I quickly photographed the arrangement, then gathered my possessions with the distinct feeling that I was being watched. The forest had gone silent again, the ambient sounds of wildlife fading to nothing as though a switch had been flipped. I started back toward my vehicle, walking briskly at first, then breaking into a run as the silence deepened and the shadows between the trees seemed to shift with purpose. The sun was lowering quickly, casting long shadows across the forest floor. I'd miscalculated how long the hike would take, and now darkness was approaching while I was still a mile from my parked van. The attack came from above, a tactic I never expected. It dropped from an overhanging branch with such force that my camera equipment went flying as I was slammed face first into the dirt. The weight on my back was immense, driving the air from my lungs in a painful rush. Hot breath puffed against my neck, carrying that same unmistakable stench. I tried to scream, but could only manage a strangled wheeze as massive hands gripped my shoulders, flipping me over with devastating ease. I found myself staring up into the face I'd glimpsed only in shadow the night before, a face that seemed to exist in the evolutionary gap between ape and man, yet was neither. Those eyes, so terrifyingly intelligent, studied me with what I can only describe as hatred. Not the mindless aggression of a predator, but the calculated malice of something that understood exactly what I was and had decided I needed to be eliminated. It made that sound again, the rumbling not quite language that raised the hair on my neck. Then, to my utter horror, it formed what was unmistakably a word: leave. The sound was guttural, as though forced through vocal cords not designed for human speech, but the meaning was unmistakable. Paralyzed with shock, I couldn't respond. The creature's massive hand closed around my throat, not quite cutting off my air, but making it clear that it could. With its other hand, it reached into the pocket of my hiking vest and removed my vehicle keys, dangling them before my eyes before hurling them with incredible force into the dense underbrush. The message couldn't have been clearer: go now and never return. It released me suddenly, stepping back to its full towering height. I scrambled to my feet, abandoning my scattered equipment without a second thought. I ran blindly through the darkening forest, branches whipping my face and roots threatening to trip me at every step. Behind me, I heard a series of whooping calls that seemed to be answered from multiple directions. There were more of them, communicating, possibly coordinating. Somehow, miraculously, I found the Forest Service road as true darkness fell. I followed it desperately toward where I thought my van was parked, aware with every step that I was being paced through the trees on either side. They could have taken me at any moment, but seemed content to escort me out of their territory. This time, when I finally reached my van, I fumbled with the hidden spare key I kept magnetized under the chassis, my fingers bloody from my headlong flight through the forest. As I pulled onto the main road, their calls echoed through the trees one final time, a sound that seemed like both a warning and a promise. I drove straight through the night, not stopping until I reached Boise the next morning. I never returned to the Sawtooth Wilderness, nor did I share the full story with anyone until now. The photos I took of the footprints and the arranged items were mysteriously corrupted on my memory card, showing only static when I tried to access them. My satellite communicator, when checked by the manufacturer, showed no record of malfunction. Sometimes on dark nights, I still wake to the sound of those calls in my dreams and the memory of intelligent, hateful eyes studying me from a face that shouldn't exist. The Shoshonebanek were right. There are guardians in those mountains, entities that protect their territory with frightening efficiency. How many missing hikers and campers over the years weren't lost to exposure or animal attacks, but to these beings who've remained hidden from human documentation. I sold my van 6 months after the incident, moving back to Portland and returning to my ranger job with a new perspective on the wilderness I thought I knew so well. Now, when campers ask me about venturing off-trail or finding secluded spots away from designated areas, I give them the same advice that Ranger Carol gave me. Stick to the marked campgrounds, respect the forest and its boundaries, and remember that not all territories are meant for human exploration. Some secrets of the wilderness should remain undiscovered for our own safety and for those who disappeared before us. Dust kicks up under my van's tires as I pull off the highway, the engine humming low. My name's Daniel Harper. I'm 47 years old, and I call Seattle home, though I haven't been there in months. I've been chasing freedom in this converted Sprinter van, my whole world packed into 80 square feet. Idaho's Sawtooth National Forest stretches out ahead, all jagged peaks and whispering pines. It's late August, and I'm here for solitude, maybe a glimpse of something wild. My buddy Claire, 52, a wiry ex-park ranger from Boise, rides shotgun. She's got this restless energy, always scanning the horizon like she's waiting for trouble. Claire's the one who picked this spot, a secluded pullout off a Forest Service road near Ketchum. She says it's got the best views and no crowds. I trust her. She's navigated worse than this. The van smells like coffee and pine sap, and the dashboard's littered with maps and empty jerky packets. I'm no stranger to the road, but something about Idaho feels heavier, like the air's holding its breath. Claire's telling me about local Bigfoot legends, her voice low and serious. I laugh it off, but her eyes don't waver. The sun's dipping below the ridge, painting the sky blood orange. I park the van on a gravel patch, level it out with a couple of blocks. Claire hops out to gather firewood, her boots crunching on pine needles. I'm fiddling with the propane stove, trying to get dinner going. The forest is quiet, too quiet maybe. No birds, no wind. Just this deep, unsettling stillness. I shake it off, blame it on being city soft. Claire's stories about Sasquatch sightings around here aren't helping though. I pull out my journal, scribble a few lines about the drive. It's a habit I picked up after my divorce. Keeps me grounded. Claire's back now, arms full of branches, talking about a hiker who vanished near here last year. Just poof, gone, she says, snapping a twig for emphasis. I roll my eyes, but I'm listening. The stars are popping out, sharp against the black. It's beautiful, sure, but there's this itch in my gut, like I'm being watched. Dinner's simple, canned chili and cornbread. We eat outside, sitting on camp chairs, the fire crackling. Claire's got this old Polaroid camera, snapping shots of the van against the trees. She hands me one, says it's for the memory bank. The photo's blurry, but there's something in the background, a shape, maybe just a shadow. I squint, then toss it in the van. Probably nothing. Still, my skin prickles, and I catch myself glancing at the tree line. Claire's quieter now, poking the fire with a stick. She's not one for silence, so it feels off. I ask her what's up, and she just shrugs, says she's tired. We've been friends for years, met at a climbing gym back in Seattle. She's tough, but tonight she seems rattled. I don't push it. The night's getting cold, so I grab my jacket and Trexate, and we head inside the van to lock up. The van's my sanctuary, everything in its place. Bed, sink, solar panels. I show Claire the setup, proud of the tweaks I've made. She nods, but her eyes keep darting to the windows. I'm starting to wonder if she's spooked by her own stories. Bigfoot's just a myth, right? Like Nessie or UFOs. Still, I double-check the locks, more out of habit than anything. We climb into our bunks, the van creaking as we settle. Claire's breathing evens out fast, but I'm wide awake, staring at the ceiling. The forest outside feels alive in a way I can't explain, like it's waiting for something. I tell myself it's just the altitude messing with me. Tomorrow, we'll hike, maybe fish. It'll be fine. But as I drift off, I can't shake this feeling, heavy and disturbing, that we're not alone out here. Morning light filters through the van's curtains, weak and gray. I wake up stiff, my neck aching from the thin pillow. Claire's already up, brewing coffee on the stove, but she's moving slow, like she didn't sleep. I ask how she's holding up, and she mumbles something about a bad dream. Her eyes are red-rimmed, and it's not just the smoke from last night's fire. I let it slide. Pushing Claire when she's like this is like poking a bear. The air in the van feels thick, almost suffocating, and I crack a window to shake off the weird vibe. Outside, the sawtooth forest looks different in daylight, but not exactly welcoming. The pines crowd in close, their branches clawing at the sky. I notice the gravel around the van's churned up, more than it should be from us parking. Probably just deer, I tell myself, but it's unsettling all the same. Claire hands me a mug of coffee, and we sit on the van's bumper, planning the day. She wants to hike to a lake nearby, says it's only a couple miles. I'm game, but something's nagging at me, like we're missing a piece of the puzzle. We pack light, water, snacks, a first aid kit. I grab my old hunting knife, more for cutting rope than anything else. Claire notices and raises an eyebrow, but doesn't comment. As we're locking up, I spot something stuck under the van's wiper. A scrap of cloth, faded red, torn like it caught on something rough. I pull it free, and it smells rank, like wet fur and decay. Claire's face tightens, but she says it's probably just trash. I stuff it in my pocket, not sure why I don't toss it. The trail starts easy, winding through meadows dotted with wildflowers. Claire's quiet again, which isn't like her. She's usually rattling off facts about plants or animals. I try to lighten the mood, joking about Bigfoot stealing our chili. She forces a smile, but it doesn't reach her eyes. Half a mile in, we find a tree with deep gouges in the bark, too high for a bear. My stomach twists, but I don't say anything. Claire snaps a photo with her Polaroid, her hands shaking just enough to notice. We keep going, but the trail's getting rougher, roots tripping us up. I'm sweating despite the chill, and Claire's lagging behind. I slow down, ask if she wants to turn back. She shakes her head, stubborn as ever, but I can tell she's rattled. It's not just the tree. Something's off, like the forest itself is watching us. I laugh it off, say it's probably just my city nerves, but the words feel hollow. Claire doesn't respond, just keeps walking. At a stream crossing, we stop to refill our bottles. The water's clear, but there's this faint smell, musky and wrong. I glance at Claire, and she's staring at the bank, where the mud's all torn up. Not like animal tracks, bigger, messier, almost human, but not quite. My heart's pounding now, and I'm kicking myself for not bringing a map. Claire mutters something about heading back, but then she freezes, her eyes locked on the trees across the stream. I follow her gaze, but it's just shadows. Or is it? I'm ready to call it quits, but Claire insists we keep going, says the lake's close. I don't argue. She's the expert, right? But as we climb higher, the air feels heavier, like it's pressing down on us. My knife's in my pack, and I'm wondering if I should keep it handy. Stupid, I know, but this place is getting under my skin. Claire's not talking now, just marching forward, her jaw set. I'm starting to think coming out here was a mistake. Back at the van, we'd planned to stay another night, but I'm not so sure anymore. The forest feels alive in a way that's hard to shake, like it's got eyes. I mention moving to a campground closer to Ketchum, but Claire brushes it off, says we're fine. Her voice cracks, though, and I'm not buying it. I check the van's tires, make sure everything's set, just in case. The cloth in my pocket feels heavier, like it's carrying something I don't want to know about. As we push deeper into the trail, I keep glancing back, half expecting to see something following us. Nothing's there, but the feeling doesn't quit. Claire's ahead now, her steps uneven, like she's forcing herself to keep going. The lake's got to be close, but I'm not sure it's worth it. Something's wrong out here, scary wrong, and I'm starting to think we're not the ones in control. The trail narrows, trees pressing in like they're trying to swallow us whole. Claire's still ahead, but she's moving slower, her breath ragged. I'm clutching my pack straps, my eyes darting to every rustle in the brush. We're close to the lake now. I can smell the water, crisp and cold, but the air's got this sour edge, like something's rotting nearby. My gut's screaming at me to turn back, but Claire's got that stubborn look, and I don't want to be the one to crack. Still, this place feels wrong, like we've crossed some line we didn't see. We break through a thicket, And there's the lake, flat as glass, reflecting the peaks. It should be beautiful, but it's eerie, too still. No birds, no fish jumping. Just silence, heavy and disturbing. Claire drops her pack, kneels by the water. I'm about to say something when I notice it. A pile of bones on the shore, picked clean, too big for a deer. My heart skips. Claire, I whisper, nodding at them. She looks, and her face goes pale, like she's seeing something I'm not. I step closer, my boots sinking in the mud. The bones are fresh, marrow still glistening. Claw marks score the ground nearby, deep and wide. Not a bear, not a cougar, something else. I'm no tracker, but this feels like a warning. Claire's muttering now, something about a ranger report she read last year. A camper who'd seen something out here. I want to laugh it off, tell her it's just animals, but my throat's tight, and the words won't come. The forest's too quiet, and it's scaring me. We decide to head back, fast. Claire's zipping her pack, her hands clumsy, when we hear it. A low, guttural rumble, like a growl but deeper, vibrating in my chest. It's coming from the trees across the lake. I freeze, my eyes scanning the shadows. Nothing moves, but I swear something's there, just out of sight. Claire grabs my arm, her nails digging in. Dan, we gotta go, she hisses. I nod, but my legs feel like lead, pinned by this horrifying weight. We start back down the trail, moving quick but not running. Not yet. My knife's in my hand now, useless as it feels. Every step, I'm waiting for that sound again, but it's just our boots crunching and my pulse hammering. Claire's muttering about Bigfoot, half to herself, like she's piecing something together. I want to tell her to shut up, that it's just a story, but then I see it. A footprint, fresh in the dirt, bigger than any man's, with toes splayed weird. My stomach lurches. This isn't a joke anymore. Halfway down, Claire trips, goes down hard on her knee. I help her up, but she's shaking, not just from the fall. I saw it, she whispers, her eyes wide. Back at the lake, in the trees. Tall, dark, moving fast. I don't want to believe her, but the fear in her voice is real, and it's contagious. I glance back, half expecting some monster to come crashing through. Nothing's there, but the hairs on my neck are up, and I can't shake this feeling we're being hunted. We're moving faster now, the van's maybe a mile off. The trail feels different, like it's shifting under us. I keep checking behind, my knife gripped so tight my knuckles ache. Claire's limping, slowing us down, and I'm torn between helping her and bolting. Then we find it. Our trail marker, a ribbon we'd tied to a branch, shredded and hanging like it was clawed apart. My mouth goes dry. Something's out here, and it's not just watching anymore. It's playing with us. The light's fading, the forest turning gray. Every shadow looks like it's moving, and I'm jumping at nothing. Claire's muttering again, saying we should have stayed and catch him, that she knew better. I snap at her to focus, but I'm just as rattled. My mind's racing. Did I lock the van? Is it even safe? That growl comes again, closer this time, from the ridge above us. It's not an animal, not like anything I've ever heard. My blood runs cold, and I know we're in deep, horrifying trouble. We're almost at the van. I can see the glint of its roof through the trees, when Claire stops dead. She's staring at something off the trail, her face frozen. I follow her gaze, and my breath catches a shape, massive, hunched, just beyond the pines. It's not clear, like it's blending with the dusk, but it's there, and it's wrong. My heart's pounding so hard I can't think. Claire's whispering my name, her voice barely a breath, and I know we're out of time. My legs burn as I grab Claire's arm, yanking her toward the van. That shape in the trees, it's moving now, a hulking mass weaving through the pines, too fast for something so big. My heart's slamming against my ribs, and all I can think is get to the van, get to the van. Claire's limping bad, her knees swollen, but she's pushing through, her face pale as death. The air's thick with that rancid fur smell, and every snap of a twig behind us feels like a gunshot. We're so close, the van's right there, but it's like the forest is stretching, keeping us trapped in this horrifying nightmare. I fumble for my keys, my hands slick with sweat. Claire's gasping, muttering about how we should have left at dawn. I snap at her to keep moving, but I'm just as scared in a way I haven't been since I was a kid lost in the woods. The van's door is 10 feet away when I hear it. A bellow, deep and guttural, shaking the ground. It's not a bear, not a wolf. It's wrong. I glance back, and there it is, closer now, eyes glinting in the dusk. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever, it's real, and it's coming for us. I shove Claire toward the passenger side, screaming at her to get in. She scrambles, half falling, as I rip open the driver's door. My knife still in my hand, useless against something that size, but I can't let go. The keys slip, clatter to the floorboard, and I'm cursing, diving after them. Claire's in now, slamming her door, yelling my name. I find the keys, jam them in the ignition. The engine sputters, come on, then roars to life. I hit the gas, gravel spraying, but that thing's still there, loping alongside us, a shadow keeping pace. We're bouncing down the Forest Service road, branches scraping the van like claws. Claire's gripping the dash, her knuckles white, whispering, "Faster, Dan, faster." I'm flooring it, but the road's a mess, ruts and rocks threatening to tear the axles apart. In the rear view, I see it, that massive shape, weaving through the trees, not chasing so much as hurting us. My skin crawls. I've seen enough horror movies to know this is bad, like that scene in Jurassic Park where the T-Rex is just toying with the Jeep. I swerve to avoid a fallen log, and Claire yelps as we fishtail. The van's holding, but barely. I'm thinking about Ketchum, the safety of lights and people, but it's 20 miles away, and this thing's not slowing. I yell at Claire to check the map, find a ranger station, anything. She's fumbling with her phone. No signal, of course. Then she screams, pointing ahead. There's a tree down, blocking the road, too big to ram. My stomach drops. It's a trap, and we're caught in it, stuck in this terrifying game. I slam on the brakes, the van skidding to a stop. That bellow comes again, closer, vibrating through the metal. Claire's crying now, saying we're gonna die out here. I'm not thinking straight, just reacting. Grab the knife, pop the door, tell her to stay put. I'm gonna cut some branches, maybe clear enough to squeeze by. It's stupid, I know, but sitting here feels worse. I step out, the air cold and heavy, and I hear it. Heavy breathing, not mine, not Claire's. It's behind the van, and it's close. I'm hacking at the tree, my arms shaking, when Claire screams my name. I spin around, and there it is, taller than me, broader than a linebacker, fur matted and eyes like pits. It's not charging, just standing there, staring. My knife feels like a toothpick. I back toward the van, slow, praying it doesn't move. Claire's banging on the window, her face pure panic. I'm almost at the door when it steps forward, one massive foot crushing the gravel. My blood's ice, and I know we're in a life or death fight we can't win. I dive into the van, slam the door, lock it. Claire's sobbing, saying we're done for. I'm not giving up, not yet. I throw the van into reverse, praying we can backtrack. The engine groans, tires spinning, but we're moving. That thing's still there, watching, like it knows we're not getting far. I'm weaving through the dark, the headlights catching glimpses of trees, and, God help me, those eyes, tracking us. We're running, but it's not enough, and deep down, I know this horror's not letting us go easy. We're tearing through the forest, the van rattling like it's gonna fall apart. My hands are locked on the wheel, Claire's curled up in her seat, muttering prayers or curses. I can't tell. The road's a blur, and I'm barely keeping it together. I'm thinking about my ex, my old life in Seattle, how I should have stayed put. This was supposed to be an adventure, not a death sentence. Those eyes keep flashing in my mind, cold and endless, like they're burned into me. The smell's back too, seeping through the vents, making my stomach churn. It's out there, pacing us, and it's terrifying how it doesn't even seem to try hard. I spot a fork in the road, a faded sign pointing to a ranger station. Hope flares, but it's faint. I take the turn too fast, the van tilting, Claire screaming as we nearly roll. I correct, barely, and keep going. The station's gotta be close, 5 miles, maybe less. I'm telling Claire we're gonna make it, but my voice cracks, and she's not buying it. Then the engine sputters, a sickening lurch. The fuel gauge, I didn't check it. We're running on fumes, and I'm kicking myself for being so damn careless. This is on me, and it's bad. We coast another 100 yards before the van dies, rolling to a stop in the middle of nowhere. The silence is worse than the growl, pure, suffocating horror. Claire's shaking, saying we should run, but I know better. It's out there, waiting for us to make a move. I grab the knife, tell her to stay quiet. Maybe we can wait it out till dawn. I'm lying to myself, but it's all I've got. Then we hear it. A slow, deliberate crunch, like something heavy circling the van. My heart's in my throat, and I'm praying for a miracle. Claire's whispering about her kids, how she should have called them. I'm thinking about my journal, all those pages I'll never finish. The crunching stops, and for a second, I think maybe it's gone. Then the van rocks, hard, like something slammed into it. Claire screams, and I'm yelling at her to shut up, but it's too late. The window beside her shatters, glass spraying, and I see it. A massive arm, fur-covered, reaching in. She's clawing at the door, trying to get away, and I'm swinging my knife, useless as ever. I don't know how I get the door open, but I'm out, dragging Claire with me. She's bleeding, her arm torn up, but she's alive, for now. We're running blind, the forest a maze of shadows. I can hear it behind us, crashing through the trees, not even pretending to hide. My lungs burn, my legs are jelly, but I keep going, half carrying Claire. We stumble into a clearing, and I see it. A light, faint, maybe the ranger station. I'm shouting for help, my voice raw, but there's no answer, just that thing closing in. Claire's slowing, her breath hitching. She tells me to go, save myself. I'm not leaving her, not after everything. I pull her along, but she's heavy, and I'm fading. The light's closer now, but so is it. I can feel its breath, hot and foul, and I know we're out of time. I trip, we both go down, and Claire's screaming my name. I turn, and it's there, looming, those eyes boring into me. My knife's gone, lost somewhere, and I'm just a guy in the woods, out of luck and out of fight. I'm trying to shield Claire, but it's pointless. It grabs her, yanks her from my arms like she's nothing. Her scream cuts off, sharp and final, and I'm alone, sprawled in the dirt. I'm scrambling, crawling toward that light, tears blurring everything. The thing's not chasing me, it doesn't need to. I hear it moving off, dragging something, and I know Claire's gone. I'm sobbing, hating myself for running, for not checking the gas, for bringing us out here. The light's a cabin, empty, no help. I collapse inside, lock the door, but it's over. Morning comes, gray and cold. I'm still here, somehow, but Claire's not. Rangers find me later, say I'm lucky to be alive. They don't believe me about Bigfoot, call it a bear attack. I don't argue, what's the point? I'm back in Seattle now. The van sold, my journal burned. But those eyes, that smell, they're with me, every night, every quiet moment. I keep thinking I could have saved her, if I'd just been smarter, braver. It's a tragedy I'll carry forever, a horrifying debt I can't pay. My name is Margaret Klein, 52 years old, and after 3 decades working as an emergency room nurse in Chicago, I thought I'd seen the worst humanity had to offer. Gunshot wounds, catastrophic accidents, drug overdoses, you name it. I treated it with steady hands and an increasingly detached demeanor. That detachment eventually seeped into my personal life too, contributing to my divorce 5 years ago and my growing estrangement from my adult son, Aaron. When I finally retired early last year, cashing in my pension and 401k, nobody was particularly surprised when I announced I was buying a van and hitting the road solo. Classic midlife crisis, my ex-husband had said with a dismissive shrug. Maybe he was right, but I preferred to think of it as finally living for myself after a lifetime of caring for others. I'd spent nearly 8 months converting a Ford Transit into a cozy mobile home. Installing solar panels, a compact bathroom with a composting toilet, a functional kitchenette, and a surprisingly comfortable full-sized bed. My Maggie's Freedom Machine, as I'd christened it, had already taken me through the Midwest and across the Rockies. Now, in early October, I was exploring Idaho's stunning wilderness areas, drawn by the promise of fewer tourists and spectacular autumn colors. I'd been following the Payette River north from Boise, stopping wherever the mood struck me and enjoying the liberating anonymity of the open road. The tourist season was winding down, but I'd met a few fellow vanlifers at various stops along the way. Most were significantly younger than me, digital nomads in their 30s with laptops and satellite internet, working remotely from breathtaking locations. They tended to travel in loose packs, sharing information about free camping spots and the best coffee shops with Wi-Fi. I kept to myself mostly, though I'd occasionally join them around a campfire for an evening, listening to their stories and sharing some sanitized versions of my ER experiences when pressed. It was at one such gathering outside McCall that I first heard about the remote hot springs in the Payette National Forest. Absolutely magical, a bearded 30-something named Kyle had told me, his eyes reflecting the campfire as he sipped his craft beer. Not on any tourist maps, completely natural pools with perfect temperatures. I'd tell you exactly where, but... He trailed off with a conspiratorial smile. But what? I'd asked, intrigued despite myself. The locals are pretty protective of it, and there's been some weird stuff happening up there lately. Animals going missing, strange sounds at night. He'd shrugged. Probably just bear activity, but I wouldn't go alone. Of course, that was exactly the kind of challenge I couldn't resist. I'd spent my entire adult life in the structured environment of a hospital, following protocols and procedures. The whole point of my new life was embracing the unknown, taking calculated risks. Besides, I wasn't some naive city slicker. I'd taken wilderness first aid courses before hitting the road, carried bear spray and knew how to use it, and had invested in quality emergency equipment, including a satellite messenger. So the next morning, I'd casually circled back to Kyle's van before he headed out, bringing him a cup of good coffee as a pretext. With a little friendly persuasion, he'd marked the approximate location of the hot springs on my physical map, about 7 miles up this Forest Service road, then a half-mile hike in. But seriously, Maggie, find someone to go with you. I nodded non-committally, already planning my solo expedition. The weather forecast was perfect, crisp autumn days and cool nights, ideal for soaking in natural hot springs. After stocking up on supplies in McCall, I headed north along the winding road that would take me deep into the Payette National Forest, leaving cell service behind within the first few miles. The Forest Service road Kyle had indicated was barely marked, just a small wooden sign with faded numbers that matched my map. As my van climbed higher into the mountains, the aspens and cottonwoods created a golden canopy over the narrow dirt road, their leaves occasionally showering down in the light breeze. The isolation was exhilarating. Not another vehicle in sight, just me and the increasingly rugged Idaho wilderness. I spotted a few deer browsing in small meadows and even caught a glimpse of what might have been a black bear in the distance, foraging before winter hibernation. This was exactly the experience I dreamed of when I'd first sketched out plans for my van on a notepad during a particularly grueling night shift 3 years ago. Little did I know that my peaceful retreat was about to turn into a nightmare beyond anything I'd witnessed in my decades of emergency medicine. That the Payette National Forest harbored secrets darker than any urban trauma center. And that my van, my precious freedom machine, would become both my prison and my only hope for survival in the coming days. I found a perfect spot to park about 6.5 miles up the Forest Service road. A small clearing just big enough for my van, with a breathtaking view of the valley below. According to my map, the hot springs should be less than a mile away through the forest. I decided to set up camp first and hike to the springs in the afternoon, giving myself plenty of time to soak and return before dark. As I prepared a light lunch of tuna salad and crackers, I noticed how quiet the forest was. No birdsong, no chattering squirrels, just the occasional rustle of leaves in the breeze. It wasn't completely unheard of. Wildlife sometimes goes silent when a predator is nearby. Still, it triggered the same instinctive unease I used to feel in the ER just before a major trauma would roll through the doors, that sixth sense that something wasn't right. I dismissed the feeling as urban paranoia and focused on preparing my day pack for the hike. Water bottle, trail mix, small first aid kit, bear spray, map, compass, and my satellite messenger. The sun was high overhead as I locked my van and set off in the direction Kyle had indicated, following what appeared to be a faint game trail through the underbrush. The October air was crisp but not uncomfortable, and the exertion of hiking soon had me unzipping my jacket. About 20 minutes in, I noticed something odd: small piles of stones stacked into cairns, spaced irregularly among the trees. They didn't seem to be marking a trail, as they weren't in any logical sequence, and they had an unsettling deliberateness to them. Some were arranged in tight spirals, others in patterns that reminded me of ancient petroglyphs I'd seen in archaeology magazines. Natural erosion couldn't explain these formations. Someone, or something, had created them with purpose. "Hello," I called out, my voice sounding unnaturally loud in the silent forest. "Anyone there?" No response came, but the hair on the back of my neck stood up as I suddenly felt observed. I scanned the dense trees surrounding me, seeing nothing but shadows and trunks. Shaking off the sensation, I continued toward where the hot spring should be, but with a more alert posture, my hand drifting occasionally to the bear spray canister on my hip. The trail grew steeper, and I had to use exposed tree roots as makeshift steps in some places. The forest seemed to close in around me, the trees growing more densely packed, with thick undergrowth that hadn't yet died back for winter. I checked my map again, confirming I was heading in the right direction, though I was beginning to question Kyle's estimate of the distance. I'd been hiking for nearly 40 minutes without any sign of the hot springs. Just as I was considering turning back, I caught the faint scent of sulfur on the breeze, the telltale odor of geothermal activity. Encouraged, I pushed forward through a particularly dense thicket of shrubs and suddenly found myself in a small clearing. 3 natural pools of varying sizes were carved into the rocky ground, steaming gently in the cool air. The largest was about the size of a hot tub, the water a mesmerizing turquoise that reminded me of Caribbean beaches. But my appreciation of the scene was immediately overshadowed by 2 disturbing details. First, the remnants of a campsite, a blackened fire ring surrounded by trash, empty beer cans, food wrappers, and what appeared to be torn clothing. Second, and far more alarming, was the massive footprint pressed into the soft mud near the largest pool. It was clearly bipedal but impossibly large, at least 16 inches long with 5 distinct toes. My nursing career had familiarized me with human anatomy in great detail, and this print was structurally human-like but scaled to proportions that defied explanation. I crouched to examine it more closely, noting the fresh clarity of the impression. Whatever had made this track had been here recently, very recently. I reached for my phone to take a photo before remembering there was no service this deep in the wilderness. Instead, I placed my own boot next to it for scale, mentally noting that at least 3 of my size 8 feet would fit inside this single print. A sudden crack of breaking branches made me jump to my feet, heart pounding. It had come from the dense forest on the far side of the clearing, a heavy sound that suggested something large moving through the underbrush. My eyes darted toward the noise, but the late afternoon shadows made it impossible to see more than a few yards into the trees. Another crack, closer this time, followed by a low, rumbling sound that was neither growl nor voice, but something unsettlingly in between. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my ER training took over. Sudden movements often trigger predator responses. I slowly began backing toward the path I'd taken into the clearing, keeping my eyes fixed on the tree line where the sounds had originated. That's when I saw it. Not clearly, but enough to know that what moved between those trees was not a bear or any recognized wildlife. A massive shape, at least 8 feet tall, covered in dark fur, moving with an almost human gait on 2 legs. My hand trembled as I unclipped the bear spray from my belt, holding it at the ready as I continued my careful retreat. 20 yards to the path. 15. 10. The figure remained partially obscured by the trees, watching me with what I could now make out as eerily reflective eyes. 5 yards. Just as I reached the path, it emerged slightly from the tree line, enough for me to glimpse a face that haunts my nightmares to this day. A broad, flat nose above a mouth set in a permanent grimace, with teeth too large and sharp for any primate I recognized. I backed into the narrow trail, never taking my eyes off the creature, then finally turned and began moving as quickly as I dared through the dense undergrowth. I didn't run, not yet, but maintained a fast walk, constantly looking over my shoulder. The creature hadn't followed immediately, but I could hear movement parallel to my path through the forest, as though it was tracking me from just out of sight. The sounds would stop when I stopped, resume when I resumed walking. It was stalking me, herding me back toward my van with terrifying intelligence. The waning afternoon light filtered weakly through the canopy, creating disorienting patterns of shadow and light. What had been a challenging but straightforward hike and was now a desperate navigation puzzle as panic began to cloud my thinking. I stumbled over exposed roots, snagged my jacket on branches, and twice nearly lost my footing on steep sections of the trail. All the while, that presence moved alongside me, just visible enough through the trees to confirm it was following but keeping its distance. When my van finally came into view through the trees, I nearly sobbed with relief. I broke into a run for the last 50 yards, fumbling with my keys as I reached the vehicle. As I yanked open the driver's side door, I caught movement in my peripheral vision. The creature had emerged from the forest at the edge of the clearing, standing fully upright in the fading daylight, watching me with unnerving stillness. I scrambled inside, slamming and locking the door behind me, then quickly securing the rest of the van. Through the windows, I could see it still standing there, massive and impossible, a walking contradiction to everything I thought I knew about North American wildlife. It made no move to approach the van, but simply observed with those intelligent eyes that seemed to calculate and assess. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably only minutes, it melted back into the forest with surprising grace for something so large. My hands shook violently as I tried to process what I'd seen. Bear? No, wrong proportions entirely, and bears don't track humans with such deliberate intelligence. Man in a costume? The movement had been too fluid, too natural, and the remote location made such a prank unlikely, which left only one possibility, one I'd always dismissed as folklore and tourist trap mythology: Bigfoot. Sasquatch, the legendary creature of the Pacific Northwest wilderness. The rational, scientific part of my brain, the part honed by decades of medicine, rejected the conclusion immediately. But my eyes and instincts told a different story. Whatever I'd seen was real, and it presented a very real danger. I needed to leave immediately. I reached for the ignition, but then hesitated as darkness rapidly descended outside my windows. Driving these narrow mountain roads at night would be treacherous under normal circumstances, let alone in my current shaken state. The creature hadn't approached my van. Perhaps it was afraid of human structures or vehicles. I made the decision that would change everything. I would spend the night in the van and depart at first light. I secured everything, closing all curtains and blinds to prevent anything from seeing in, while I could still see out. Then I retrieved my satellite messenger, ready to trigger an SOS if necessary. The device showed full battery and a clear sky signal. Small comfort, but comfort nonetheless. As night fully enveloped the forest, strange calls echoed through the darkness. Whooping sounds interspersed with what could almost be words, coming from multiple directions. Whatever was out there, it wasn't alone, and it was communicating. I huddled in my bed, bear spray in one hand and satellite messenger in the other, listening to the calls grow closer as the night wore on. Sleep was impossible as shadows moved past my windows, occasionally blocking the moonlight that filtered through the trees. Around 3 a.m., something heavy circled my van, its footsteps crunching on the forest floor. I held my breath as it paused outside each window in turn, as though systematically examining my vehicle. Then came the first testing touch, a massive hand pressing against the driver's side window, not hard enough to break it, but with enough force to let me know it could if it wanted to. Morning couldn't come fast enough. I dozed fitfully in short bursts, jerking awake at every sound from outside the van. The testing touches had continued intermittently through the night, gentle at first, then increasingly forceful, as though whatever was out there was growing frustrated by its inability to reach me. By dawn, my nerves were frayed to breaking point, but at least I could now see clearly through the windows. The clearing appeared empty as the first light filtered through the trees. No massive creature, no footprints visible from my vantage point. Nothing to confirm that the previous night had been anything but a stress-induced hallucination. I allowed myself a moment of relief before carefully checking each window and the van's exterior cameras. Clear in all directions. Maybe they were nocturnal, retreating to wherever they denayed during daylight hours. I decided to risk a quick trip outside to inspect my van for damage before attempting to leave. The moment I cracked the door open, that same musky, wild odor from yesterday washed over me. Undeniable evidence that something had indeed been circling my vehicle. Steeling myself, I stepped fully outside, bear spray gripped tightly in my hand as I surveyed the area with quick, nervous glances. The clearing seemed peaceful in the morning light, birds finally singing in the distance. But my relief evaporated as I circled the van and saw what had been done to it. All 4 tires had been slashed, not punctured by running over something sharp, but deliberately cut with multiple parallel gashes that resembled claw marks. I stared in disbelief at the deflated rubber, understanding dawning with horrifying clarity. I wasn't getting out of here under my own power. I rushed back inside the van, locking the door behind me, and grabbed my satellite messenger. This was unquestionably an emergency now. I pressed the SOS button, expecting the reassuring flash that would confirm my distress signal was being transmitted to emergency services. Nothing happened. I tried again, checking the battery and signal strength indicators, both still showing full capacity. It simply wouldn't activate the emergency protocol. My hands trembled as I tried to think clearly. The device had been working perfectly when I checked it last night. The only explanation was that something was interfering with the signal, either natural geography or something deliberately blocking it. The latter possibility sent ice through my veins. These creatures, whatever they were, seemed to possess intelligence far beyond what any known North American wildlife should have. I retrieved my physical map, trying to determine the fastest route to safety on foot. The nearest town, according to the map, was about 18 miles away by road, probably 14 or 15 if I cut through the forest. Under normal circumstances, that would be a challenging but doable day-long hike. But these weren't normal circumstances. I'd be exposed and vulnerable the entire way, in territory that clearly belonged to something that didn't want me here. As I weighed my options, a movement at the forest edge caught my eye. One of them stood partially concealed behind a massive pine, watching the van. In the daylight, I could see it more clearly than before. At least 8 feet tall, covered in dark reddish-brown fur, with a distinctly humanoid face set in that same grimacing expression. Its eyes locked with mine through the window, and in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that this was no animal acting on instinct. There was calculation in that gaze, perhaps even hatred. It raised one massive hand in what almost seemed like a beckoning gesture, then turned and moved deeper into the forest, pausing once to look back at me. The message couldn't have been clearer. Follow me. Was it trying to lure me out of the safety of my van? Or did it genuinely want to communicate something? Either way, I wasn't about to accept the invitation. I spent the morning taking inventory of my supplies. I had enough food for about 5 days if I rationed carefully, plenty of water thanks to my filtration system that could process rainwater collected from the van's roof, and adequate propane for heating and cooking. My solar panels would keep the electrical systems running indefinitely in decent weather. I could potentially wait for help. My son knew my general itinerary and would eventually alert authorities if he didn't hear from me for long enough. But eventually could mean weeks, and I wasn't confident my van would remain secure for that long. Around midday, I noticed more movement at the tree line. Not just one creature now, but 3. They made no attempt to conceal themselves this time, standing openly at different points around the clearing, effectively surrounding my van. The one I recognized from earlier appeared to be the largest, flanked by 2 slightly smaller individuals with similar features. They remained motionless, simply watching, as though they were conducting a silent siege. Hours passed with this bizarre standoff continuing. The creatures would occasionally communicate with those low, rumbling sounds, but mostly they just watched. As afternoon wore on, their patience clearly exceeded mine. I was becoming increasingly anxious, while they seemed content to wait indefinitely. What were they waiting for? Nightfall? Reinforcements? Or were they simply trying to wear me down psychologically? Just before dusk, the largest one approached my van directly for the first time. It moved with surprising grace for its size, covering the distance from the tree line to my vehicle in a few long strides. I shrank back from the windows, heart hammering in my chest as it circled the van once again, this time in broad daylight. It paused at the back doors, and what happened next defies explanation. It carefully, deliberately, tried the handle. When it found the door locked, it examined the mechanism with what appeared to be frustration, then struck the door once with an open palm, not hard enough to damage it, but with enough force to rock the entire van. Message delivered. It knew how doors worked. It understood the concept of locks, and it wanted in. As darkness fell, the psychological warfare escalated. They began taking turns approaching the van, testing different entry points, windows, doors, even the rooftop vent. Each approach was calculated and purposeful. They never used their full strength, which suggested they were saving that option for later. Instead, they seemed to be searching for weaknesses, both in the van's structure and in my resolve. Around midnight, a new tactic emerged. They began placing objects around my van. At first, I couldn't make out what they were in the darkness. but when I risked using my flashlight to illuminate the area, I recoiled in horror. Animal carcasses, rabbits, a fox, and what might have been a small deer arranged in a semicircle around the front of my vehicle. A warning? A threat? An offering? Whatever the intent, the message was clear: I was dealing with predators. The night became a blur of terror as they escalated their intimidation. They began rocking the van rhythmically, not enough to tip it, but sufficient to prevent any possibility of sleep. The motion combined with the psychological stress left me nauseated and disoriented. I clutched my useless satellite messenger and ineffective bear spray, knowing neither would save me if they decided to use their full strength against the van's relatively fragile structure. Just before dawn, when my mental resistance was at its lowest ebb, the largest one approached my driver's side window and pressed its face close to the glass. Our eyes met through the barrier, and its lips pulled back in what might have been a grin or a grimace, revealing teeth that seemed designed for tearing flesh. Then, with deliberate slowness, it raised one massive hand to the glass and began tracing patterns with a dirty fingernail. To my absolute horror, I realized it was drawing crude but recognizable symbols that might have been pictographs. It was trying to communicate, and that was perhaps the most terrifying realization of all. The third day of my captivity began with an eerie calm. The creatures had retreated at sunrise, as they had the previous morning, but this time they left something behind: a crude drawing scratched into the dirt in front of my van. From my vantage point, it appeared to be a simple map showing the mountain, the hot springs, my van's location, and what might have been a path leading away from the area. A directive to leave? But my tires were slashed. They had ensured I couldn't drive away. Did they expect me to abandon the van and flee on foot? I studied the drawing through my windshield, noting how precise and intentional it seemed. These weren't random marks. They were communication from beings that shouldn't exist, let alone possess this level of intelligence. My scientific mind struggled to reconcile what I was experiencing with what I believed possible. In my decades as a nurse, I'd encountered phenomena that stretched medical explanation. Patients who briefly revived after being declared dead, inexplicable recoveries, strange reactions to trauma, but nothing that so fundamentally challenged reality itself. The morning dragged on with no sign of the creatures. I forced myself to eat a small breakfast, knowing I needed to maintain my strength, but my appetite had all but disappeared. My mind raced through possible scenarios for escape. Without functioning tires, the van was immobile. I had a small emergency repair kit, but it was designed for minor punctures, not the devastating slashes that had rendered all 4 tires useless. Walking out remained dangerous. 18 miles through territory controlled by these creatures, with no guarantee they wouldn't pursue me. Around midday, I made a decision. I would wait until nightfall, then attempt to sneak away under cover of darkness. The creatures seemed more active at night, but I hoped I could use the shadows to my advantage, perhaps slipping past them while they were occupied elsewhere. I began gathering essential supplies in my backpack: water, protein bars, first aid kit, bear spray, flashlight, map, compass, and the still useless satellite messenger on the slim chance it might start working once I was farther from this area. As I prepared, movement outside caught my attention. Not the creatures this time, but a deer, a young buck with small antlers, cautiously entering the clearing. It seemed nervous, constantly scanning its surroundings as it nibbled at sparse vegetation. Its presence gave me a flicker of hope. Perhaps the creatures were truly gone if normal wildlife was returning to the area. That hope was violently extinguished moments later. A massive dark shape exploded from the tree line with impossible speed, covering the distance to the deer in seconds. The buck tried to flee, but it never had a chance. The creature, the same large one that had drawn in the dirt, caught it with one powerful arm, snapping its neck with a casual efficiency that turned my blood to ice. It stood over its kill, staring directly at my van, then deliberately dragged the deer to the edge of the clearing where it began to prepare it. I won't describe in detail what followed, but my medical training told me this was no animal feeding frenzy. The creature butchered the deer with methodical precision, using what appeared to be crude stone tools to separate meat from bone. The process was disturbingly human in its organization and purpose. When it finished, it left a portion of the meat on a large leaf at the edge of the clearing, an offering, before retreating into the forest with the rest. The message couldn't have been clearer: They were showing me what they could do to flesh and bone, what they could do to me if they chose. My escape plan now seemed hopelessly naive. They were faster than I could possibly run, stronger than I could fight, and knew this territory intimately. My only advantage was my van, a metal box they hadn't yet decided to force their way into. But how long would that advantage last? The demonstration with the deer suggested they were losing patience. As evening approached, I noticed changes in the forest around me. The previously scattered stone cairns I'd seen on my hike were now appearing at the clearing's edge, dozens of them, arranged in concentric circles around my van. I hadn't seen the creatures place them, but they multiplied throughout the afternoon, suggesting multiple individuals were working just out of my sight. Each new circle brought them closer to my vehicle, like a slowly contracting noose. Darkness fell, bringing with it the now familiar sounds of the creatures moving through the surrounding forest. Their calls seemed different tonight, more excited, more frequent. I counted at least 5 distinct voices responding to each other from different directions. They were coordinating something, and my instincts screamed that tonight would be different from the previous 2. I was right. Around midnight, they began a new tactic. One by one, they emerged from the forest carrying burning branches, improvised torches that illuminated their massive forms in flickering orange light. They formed a complete circle around my van, 12 of them in total, far more than I'd previously seen. The firelight revealed differences among them, variations in size, for color, and facial features. A tribe, a family group, a society. The largest one, the leader, I presumed, approached my van once more, torch held high. It studied me through the window, then deliberately placed its torch against the front tire. The rubber, already slashed and deflated, began to smoke. It wasn't fully igniting, but the creature's intent was clear. They could burn me out if they chose to. Panic surged through me as I realized their strategy. My van wasn't just transportation. It was my shelter, my lifeline, my only protection. If they destroyed it, I would have nothing. The leader removed the torch after making its point, but the threat remained explicit. They were escalating, and I was running out of options. In desperate situations, the human mind can achieve remarkable clarity. As a nurse, I'd seen patients in crisis access reserves of strength they never knew they possessed. Now, staring at 12 torch-bearing creatures surrounding my van, I experienced my own moment of desperate clarity. I couldn't outrun them, couldn't fight them, and couldn't expect rescue. But perhaps I could negotiate. It was insanity, of course. Attempting to communicate with creatures that shouldn't exist, that had demonstrated clear hostility. But what alternative remained? I slowly reached for my small whiteboard, a relic from my nursing days that I used for shopping lists and reminders, and a marker. With shaking hands, I wrote in large, clear letters, "I will leave." I pressed the board against the window where the leader could see it. Its reaction was immediate, a tilting of the head, a narrowing of those intelligent eyes. It studied the writing for a long moment, then looked directly at me. A low rumble emerged from its chest, and it raised one hand to make a sweeping gesture toward the forest road, the way out. I nodded emphatically, then pointed to my slashed tires and wrote, "Need help." The creature's expression didn't change, but it turned to the others and made a series of guttural sounds. 2 of the smaller ones immediately disappeared into the darkness, taking their torches with them. For nearly an hour, I sat in tense uncertainty, the remaining creatures maintaining their circle around my van, torches illuminating the clearing in a surreal tableau. Finally, the 2 returned, carrying something between them, branches and vines woven into crude but recognizable shapes. Wheels. Not proper wheels that could replace my destroyed tires, but something that might, theoretically, allow the van to be moved without destroying the rims. I stared in disbelief. They were offering a solution, a primitive one, but one that demonstrated problem-solving capabilities far beyond what any known animal possessed. The leader gestured impatiently, clearly expecting me to emerge and attach these makeshift wheels to my van. The thought of stepping outside, of making myself vulnerable, sent waves of fresh terror through me. But the alternative, remaining trapped until they lost patience, seemed worse. With trembling hands, I gathered tools from my van's emergency kit and wrote on the whiteboard, "I come out. No hurt me." I held it up, meeting the leader's gaze directly. It made that same sweeping gesture toward the road, which I took as affirmation of my safe passage if I left. Heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, I cracked open the driver's side door and slipped outside, tools clutched in one hand, bear spray in the other. The creatures remained in their circle, watching with unsettling stillness as I moved to the first tire. The makeshift wheel they'd created was crude but surprisingly well constructed. Branches lashed together in a circular frame, with vines woven through to create a sort of primitive tire. It wouldn't last long on a road, but it might get me down the mountain. I worked frantically, securing the first makeshift wheel to my front driver's side rim using rope from my emergency kit. The creatures watched my every move, but made no threatening gestures. As I finished the first wheel and moved to the second, the leader approached, causing me to freeze in terror. It stood barely 3 feet away, close enough for me to smell its wild, musky odor and see the rise and fall of its massive chest as it breathed. Then, with surprising gentleness, it handed me another length of vine, stronger than the rope I was using. I accepted it with a shaking hand, nodding in thanks before continuing my work. The interaction was so surreal, so impossible, that my mind struggled to process it even as my body continued the mechanical task of attaching the makeshift wheels. 1 hour later, all 4 were in place. Ugly, primitive, but potentially functional. I stepped back, gesturing to my handiwork and then toward the road, seeking confirmation that I could leave. The leader made a sound that might have been acknowledgement, then backed away, creating a path between the circle of torchbearers leading to the forest road. The message was unmistakable: go now. I didn't need to be told twice. I scrambled back into my van, tossing the tools haphazardly behind me as I started the engine. The van shuddered as I cautiously engaged the transmission, feeling the rough bump of the makeshift wheels beneath me. I eased forward, half expecting them to collapse immediately, but they held, at least for now. As I slowly navigated through the opening in their circle, the creatures began a rhythmic pounding, striking the ground with their fists in unison, creating a thunderous drumbeat that seemed to vibrate through the forest itself. It wasn't threatening, it felt more like a sending off, a ritual to mark my departure from their territory. The forest road stretched dark and treacherous before me as I crawled forward at barely 5 miles per hour, the makeshift wheels creaking ominously beneath me. In my rearview mirror, I could see the torch circle growing smaller, the creatures still performing their rhythmic pounding. I had no illusions about my situation. I was being expelled from their territory, not rescued. They wanted me gone, not dead, a distinction that had saved my life. The journey down the mountain was a nightmare of technical driving, every bump and dip threatening to dislodge my primitive wheels. I gripped the steering wheel with white-knuckled intensity, afraid to go too fast, but equally afraid to stop. Multiple times I heard cracking sounds from beneath the van as the makeshift wheels took damage, but somehow they held together. Dawn was breaking as I finally reached the main road, the makeshift wheels now badly frayed and coming apart. I pushed onward toward McCall, praying the wheels would last just a few more miles. Other vehicles began to appear on the road, their drivers staring in confusion at my strange, limping van with its bizarre wooden wheels. I must have looked deranged, unwashed, wild-eyed, operating a vehicle that by all rights shouldn't be moving. Just outside town, the last of the makeshift wheels finally gave way, leaving me stranded on the roadside but within walking distance of help. As I gathered my essential belongings and prepared to hike the final distance, I looked back toward the mountains where I'd spent the most terrifying 3 days of my life. In the morning light, they appeared peaceful, majestic, betraying nothing of what dwelled within their shadows. The mechanic in McCall stared at the remains of my makeshift wheels with undisguised disbelief. "Lady, I've been fixing cars for 30 years, and I've never seen anything like this," he said, running his fingers over the intricate vine lashings that had somehow supported my 2-ton vehicle for miles. "You said you made these yourself when your tires blew out?" I nodded, having already decided that the truth was too unbelievable to share. Who would believe me? Who wouldn't immediately dismiss my experience as the hallucination of a middle-aged woman alone in the wilderness for too long? I'd spent the night in McCall's only motel, trying to process what had happened while I waited for the garage to open. Sleep had been impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those intelligent, calculating gazes watching me through the windows of my van. Well, You've got some serious wilderness skills, the mechanic continued, shaking his head in admiration. 4 new tires will run you about $1,000. We can have them here by tomorrow morning. I thanked him and walked into town, desperate for human contact and normalcy. At a local diner, I ordered the biggest breakfast on the menu and gulped down 3 cups of coffee while checking my phone, which had finally reconnected to service. 12 missed calls from Aaron, my son. A pang of guilt hit me as I realized he'd been genuinely worried. I called him back immediately. Mom? Jesus, where have you been? His voice carried that familiar mixture of relief and frustration. Sorry, honey. I was in a dead zone in the Payette forest. No signal. Not a lie, technically. Well, you scared the hell out of me. Dad said you're probably fine, just doing your thing. But I was about to call search and rescue. I winced, imagining how close I'd come to actually needing them. I'm sorry, Aaron. I'll be better about checking in. After promising to visit him in Seattle soon, I hung up and stared at my half-eaten breakfast. Part of me wanted to tell someone, anyone, about what I'd experienced. But who would believe it? And more importantly, would telling my story lead others to seek out those creatures, either out of curiosity or worse, to hunt them? 3 days later, with new tires on my van and supplies restocked, I should have been eager to continue my journey. Instead, I found myself parked at the McCall Public Library, researching local folklore and unexplained phenomena in the Payette National Forest. What I found sent chills through me. Decades of sightings, missing hikers, strange sounds in the night. Most had rational explanations or were easily dismissed, but others sounded eerily familiar. I was about to leave when I overheard a conversation between 2 rangers at a nearby table. Third missing hiker this season, one said quietly. Same area too. Forest Service Road 374, the other asked. My blood ran cold. That was the road Kyle had directed me to, my road. Yeah, young guy, early 20s. Went up 3 days ago looking for those hot springs everyone's been talking about online. Girlfriend reported him missing when he didn't come back. I approached their table, heart hammering. Excuse me, I said. I couldn't help overhearing. I was just up in that area. The rangers exchanged glances. The older one, gray-haired with sun-weathered skin, gestured to an empty chair. Did you happen to see anything unusual up there, ma'am? I hesitated, then sat down. I think I might know where to look for him. What followed was a carefully edited version of my experience. Slashed tires from sharp rocks, getting stranded, glimpsing unusually large wildlife from a distance. I led them to believe I'd fashioned the makeshift wheels entirely myself, a story they seemed skeptical of but didn't challenge. Most importantly, I told them about the hot springs and the exact location of my clearing. The search party found the young man's body the next day, not far from where I'd been trapped. The official report cited a bear attack. Despite inconsistencies the medical examiner couldn't explain, precise wounds, missing organs, arrangement of the remains in an almost ritualistic pattern. I recognized the truth immediately. He had trespassed on their territory, just as I had. But unlike me, he hadn't been given the chance to leave. 2 weeks later, back on the road heading toward Oregon's coast, I received an email from Kyle, the Vanlifer who'd told me about the hot springs. Heard what happened up there, he wrote. They're closing that section of the forest indefinitely. Wildlife management concerns is the official line. Thought you should know. I replied with a simple, thank you, and never contacted him again. Sometimes at night, when I'm parked in some remote corner of the country, I still hear those rhythmic poundings in my dreams, that thunderous, primal drumbeat marking my expulsion from their domain. I've never told the full story to anyone until now, writing these pages a year later from a coastal campground in Washington state. Last week, I saw a documentary segment about unexplained phenomena in the Pacific Northwest. A researcher was showing a grainy photo of what he claimed was a Sasquatch print, talking excitedly about the missing link and plans for an expedition into the Payette National Forest once it reopened. I immediately sent an anonymous email to the Forest Service with GPS coordinates of the area, urging them to extend the closure indefinitely. For their safety, I wrote, though I wasn't sure if I meant the researchers or the creatures. Aaron calls more often now. We're slowly rebuilding our relationship. He's even talking about joining me on the road for a week this summer, somewhere with good cell service, he insisted. My ex-husband still thinks I'm having a midlife crisis, but he's grudgingly admitted my photographs from the road show someone more at peace than the exhausted nurse he divorced. He's not wrong. Despite everything, or perhaps because of it, I've found a strange sort of peace. The creatures in the Payette Forest taught me something profound about territory, about boundaries, about the hubris of humans who believe we understand our world completely. I still travel in my van, still seek out beautiful, remote places. But now I approach wilderness with a different attitude, not as something to be conquered or exploited, but as a realm where I am merely a visitor, one who must respect the unspoken rules of territories not my own. And I always leave before dark. The van's tires hum on the cracked asphalt of Highway 95, cutting through Idaho's panhandle. My name's Ellen Whitaker, I'm 45 years old, and I've called Portland my home for years, though I'm rarely there anymore. This old Ford Transit's my life now. Bed, stove, a few shelves nailed together by yours truly. I'm parked tonight in the Coeur d'Alene National Forest, just off a dirt road near St. Mary's. It's October, and the air's sharp, smelling of damp earth and pine. My friend Roy, 49, a grizzled mechanic from Missoula, is sprawled in the passenger seat, cracking open a beer. Roy's idea was to camp here, chase some quiet after months of city noise. He's a big guy, all flannel and beard, with stories for days. Most of them about fixing rigs, some about weirder stuff, like lights in the sky. I like his company. He's steady, doesn't fuss. The van's cozy, fairy lights strung up inside, a kettle steaming on the burner. I'm flipping through a dog-eared paperback, trying to unwind, but there's this itch, like the forest's too still tonight. We pull into a clearing, the headlights catching a glint off a creek nearby. I level the van, kill the engine, and step out to stretch. The stars are fierce, no city glow to dull them. Roy's already poking around, gathering sticks for a fire. He's humming some old country tune, off-key but comforting. I grab my jacket, noticing how the cold bites a little deeper here. Something about this place feels heavy, like it's holding a secret I don't want to know. Roy's got the fire going, sparks popping into the dark. We drag out camp chairs, and he starts talking about local lore, Bigfoot, mostly. Says folks in St. Mary's have seen things for years. Shadows, tracks, screams at night. I roll my eyes, tell him he's full of it, but he just grins, says I'll see. I'm not buying it. Myths are for tourists. But his words stick, especially with the woods so quiet. No owls, no critters. Just us and the fire's crackle. I'm sipping tea, watching the flames, when I notice Roy's gone still, staring past the van. I ask what's up, and he shakes his head, says it's nothing. But his hand's tight on his beer can, and I know him well enough to spot a lie. I glance where he was looking. Nothing but trees, black and endless. My stomach twists, just a little. I tell myself it's the dark playing tricks, but I'm already thinking about the locks on the van. We eat beans and rice, nothing fancy. Roy's joking now, trying to shake off whatever spooked him. He pulls out his harmonica, plays a few bars, and I laugh, say he's going to scare the bears. But the sound feels small, swallowed by the forest. I'm washing dishes in a bucket when I hear a splash from the creek, like something heavy stepped in. I freeze, water dripping from my hands. Roy's up, peering into the dark, his harmonica forgotten. Neither of us says it, but we're both thinking the same thing. I'm not one for nerves, but I'm double-checking the van's doors tonight. Roy's helping, though he's playing it cool, saying it was probably a deer. Inside, the van's warm, my little sanctuary, photos taped to the walls, a rug I found at a flea market. I show Roy the solar setup, proud of how it keeps me off-grid. He nods, but he's distracted, glancing at the windows. I'm starting to wonder if he knows something he's not sharing. We settle in, Roy on the fold-out bench, me in my bunk. The van creaks as we shift, and I'm trying to focus on my book, but the words blur. Roy's breathing's uneven, like he's not sleeping either. Outside, the forest feels alive, watchful. I tell myself it's just new place jitters, happens sometimes on the road. But as I lie there, I can't shake this feeling, disturbing and raw, that we've parked somewhere we shouldn't have. Morning hits like a slap, gray light creeping through the van's blinds. I'm up first, my back stiff from the bunk. Roy's still out, sprawled across the bench, snoring like a chainsaw. The air's damp, and the van smells faintly of last night's beans. I slip outside to check the clearing, my boots sinking into the mud. Something's off. The fire pit's scattered, ashes spread like someone kicked through it. Could have been wind, but there's no breeze now, and the sight's unsettling, like a warning I can't read. I start coffee, trying to shake the feeling. Roy wakes up, groggy, scratching his beard. He's quieter than usual, not cracking jokes. I mention the fire pit, and he shrugs, says maybe raccoons. But his eyes flick to the trees, and I know he's not buying his own story. We're supposed to hike today, follow a trail to some old logging camp Roy heard about. I'm not thrilled. The forest feels tighter today, like it's closing in, but Roy's insistent, says it'll be fun. We pack up, water, granola bars, a flashlight. I grab my multi-tool, more for comfort than anything. As we're locking the van, I spot something caught in the underbrush near the creek, a strip of leather, weathered and chewed. It smells foul, like roadkill left too long. Roy's face tightens when I show him, but he tosses it aside, says it's nothing. I'm not so sure. My gut's twisting, and I'm wondering if we should just pack up and head for St. Mary's. The trail's rough, overgrown with ferns slapping our legs. Roy's leading, his boots stomping like he's trying to scare something off. I'm keeping up, but my mind's on that leather, the fire pit. I ask Roy if he's heard anything weird about this area, beyond the Bigfoot stuff. He hesitates, then says a buddy of his, a logger, quit working these woods after seeing something. Didn't say what, just left. I laugh, call it a tall tale, but it's not funny, not really. The air's heavy, and it's getting to me. We're maybe a mile in when we find a tree snapped clean in half, not fallen but broken, like something huge leaned into it. The wood's fresh, splinters sharp. Roy kneels, runs a hand over it, and I see his jaw clench. Storm, maybe, he mutters, but we both know that's crap. No storm's been through here. My skin's prickling, and I'm thinking about horror stories, like that hiker in Yellowstone who vanished, just bones found later. I don't say it out loud, but I'm spooked. Roy wants to keep going, says the camp's close. I'm not so sure. Every step feels like we're pushing our luck. I suggest heading back, maybe finding a diner in town instead. He grumbles, but agrees we'll turn around soon if it feels off. But then we hear it, a low hum, not quite a growl, coming from deeper in the woods. It's faint, but it stops us cold. Roy's hand goes to his pocket, where he keeps a knife. I'm clutching my multi-tool, feeling like an idiot for bringing it. We keep moving, slower now, eyes everywhere. The trail's littered with weird marks, scratches on rocks, branches bent wrong. I'm telling myself it's just animals, but my heart's not buying it. Roy's muttering about his logger buddy again, how he swore the woods weren't right. I snap at him to focus, but I'm just as rattled. The hum comes again, closer, and I swear I see something flicker between the trees, big, dark, gone in a blink. My breath catches, and Roy's looking too, his face pale. Backtracking feels safer, but Roy's stubborn, says we're almost there. I'm torn. Part of me wants to bolt, part of me trusts him. The van's not far, I tell myself, but it feels like a world away. I'm checking my phone, no bars naturally. Roy's ahead, his shoulders tense, when he stops, points at the ground. Tracks, big ones, pressed deep in the dirt. Not bear, not human, something else. My stomach lurches, and I'm kicking myself for not listening to that itch last night. The forest's closing in, shadows stretching as the sun climbs. I'm jumping at every rustle, and Roy's not much better. We're arguing now, stay or go, camp or town. He's saying we're fine, but his voice shakes, and I know he's lying to himself. Those tracks are fresh, and whatever made them isn't far. It's scary, the kind of scary that sticks in your bones, and I'm starting to think this trip was a mistake we can't undo. The trail feels like a tunnel now, trees choking out the sky. Roy stopped arguing, his eyes locked on those tracks in the dirt. Too big, too deep, toes splayed in a way that's not right. My chest's tight, like I can't get enough air. I'm telling Roy we need to go, now, but he's frozen, staring into the pines. I follow his gaze and see nothing, just shadows, thick and unmoving. But the air's wrong, heavy with that same foul stench from the leather strip, and it's making my skin crawl. Something's out there, and it's not just my imagination. We start back, fast, no words, just boots hitting dirt. My multi-tool's in my hand, a joke against whatever made those prints. Roy's knife is out too, his knuckles wide around it. The forest's silent, no birds, no wind, just our breathing and this creeping sense of dread. I'm thinking about every scary story I've laughed off, like that couple who disappeared camping near Priest Lake, never found. My mind's racing, and I'm cursing myself for not packing up last night when I had the chance. Halfway to the van, we find a branch across the trail, fresh broken, sap still oozing. It wasn't here before. Roy kicks it aside, but his hands are shaking. I'm about to say something when we hear it. A snap, loud, like a tree cracking under weight. It's not far, maybe 100 yards. My heart's pounding so hard I can feel it in my throat. Roy whispers, "Keep moving," but his voice is thin, scared. I nod, but I'm scanning the woods, expecting something to lunge out any second. We're moving quicker, tripping over roots, when I spot something on a tree. A smear of something dark, wet, like blood but thicker. It's high up, way above my reach. Roy sees it too, swears under his breath. "Bear, maybe," he says, but we both know it's not. Bears don't smear stuff like that, don't leave tracks like we saw. I'm thinking about Roy's logger buddy, what he wouldn't say, and it's hitting me that this is real, horrifyingly real. My legs want to run, but I'm keeping it together for Roy. The van's close. I can see the clearing through the trees, but it feels like we're wading through mud, every step heavier. That stench is stronger now, choking, like it's following us. Roy's muttering about his knife, how it's not enough. I'm gripping my multi-tool so tight it's cutting into my palm. Then it comes, a sound, low and rumbling, like a growl stretched into something else, vibrating in my bones. It's behind us, and it's close. I don't look back. I can't. We break into the clearing, the van right there, but it's wrong. The side door's ajar, just a crack, and I know I locked it. My stomach drops. Roy's cursing, saying we gotta check it, but I'm thinking trap, like those horror movies where the monster's already inside. I grab his arm, tell him to wait, but he's already moving, knife raised. I'm shouting his name, my voice cracking, when I see it, a shadow, massive, slipping behind the van. It's fast, too fast, and my blood's ice. Roy's at the door now, peering inside. I'm yelling at him to stop, but he's not listening, stubborn as ever. The growl comes again, louder, from the trees on the other side. My head's spinning, two directions, no good choices. I'm backing toward the van, my eyes darting everywhere, when Roy screams, not pain, but pure terror. He stumbles back, his knife clattering to the ground. "Ellen, it's in there," he gasps, his face gray. I don't ask what. He doesn't need to say it. I'm pulling him away, toward the driver's side, my hands shaking so bad I can barely hold my keys. The vans are only shot, but the door's open, and that shadow's circling. I can feel it. The forest's alive now, branches snapping all around, like it's closing in. Roy's panting, saying we should run, but where? My mind's blank, just this raw, disturbing panic. I'm at the driver's door, fumbling the lock, when I hear it. A heavy thud, like something landed on the van's roof. Roy's beside me, his breath ragged, and we're both staring up, expecting to see it, whatever it is. Nothing's there, but the van creaks, metal groaning under weight. My keys slip, hit the dirt, and I'm diving for them, cursing myself for being so clumsy. Roy's yelling to hurry, his voice breaking, and I know we're out of time. Something's here, something big, and it's not hiding anymore. This is bad, scarier than anything I've ever faced, and we're nowhere near safe. My hands are slick with sweat, keys biting into my palm as I yank open the van's driver's side door. Roy's right behind me, his breath hot and panicked, shouting to move faster. That creak on the roof, it's gone quiet, but I feel it, whatever it is, waiting. The open side door's screaming trap, but we've got no choice. I shove Roy toward the passenger seat, my voice hoarse, telling him to get in. The forest's alive with snaps and rustles, like it's tightening around us. That foul stench chokes the air, and my heart's hammering so hard I can barely think straight. This is a horror show, and we're the main act. I'm in the driver's seat, slamming the door, when Roy screams, a raw, gut punch sound. I whip around, and he's staring at the back of the van, where my bunk and shelves are. Something's moving back there, a shadow too big for the space, shifting behind the curtain I hung for privacy. My skin crawls. I hit the locks, jam the key in the ignition. The engine sputters, catches, thank God. Roy's clawing at his door, yelling about eyes, red and glowing. I don't look, I can't. I just floor it, The van lurching forward, gravel spitting under the tires. We're tearing down the dirt road, branches clawing the windshield like fingers. The van's rattling, my solar panels probably toast, but I don't care. Roy's gripping the dash, muttering, "It's following. Ellen, it's right there." I glance in the side mirror. Nothing, just trees blurring past. But then I hear it. A thud, rhythmic, like something's keeping pace, heavy feet hitting dirt. My stomach twists. It's like that scene in The Descent, where the monsters are always just out of sight, but you know they're coming. This is worse, because it's real. The road's a nightmare, twisting through pines, ruts jerking the wheel. Roy's shouting about a bridge up ahead, says it'll take us to a highway. I'm nodding, barely listening, my eyes flicking to the mirrors. Then the van lurches, something hits us, hard, from behind. The rear window cracks, spiderwebbing. Roy screams, and I'm screaming too, swerving to keep control. I catch a glimpse in the mirror. A shape, massive, loping behind us, too fast for anything natural. Its fur's matted, eyes locked on us, and it's terrifying, like death given form. I'm pushing the van past its limit, the engine whining. The bridge is close. I see it, rickety and narrow over a ravine. Roy's saying we can't stop, no matter what. But my hands are shaking, and I'm thinking about my sister back in Portland, how I promised to call her. Stupid, but it's all I've got to keep me focused. Then it hits again, harder, and the van fishtails. I correct, barely, but the rear door's rattling, like it's being pried open. Roy's yelling to keep going, but his voice cracks, and I know he's braking. We hit the bridge, wood creaking under the weight. I'm praying it holds, praying we make it. Halfway across, the van shakes, a thud on the roof, heavy, deliberate. Roy's sobbing now, saying it's on us, it's gonna get in. I'm screaming at him to shut up, to help me think. My multi-tool's on the console, useless, but I grab it anyway, like it'll do something. The bridge ends, and we're on solid ground, but that thing's still there. I feel it, a weight dragging us down. The highway's gotta be close, but it feels like a lie. I swerve to dodge a pothole, and the van groans, something snapping underneath. The steering's off, sluggish. Roy's shouting about the tires, says we're losing one. I'm cursing myself for not checking them, for thinking this trip was a good idea. Another hit, this time from the side, and the van skids, scraping a tree. Glass shatters somewhere, passenger window maybe. Roy's yelling my name, and I'm yelling back, but it's chaos, a life or death blur. I see it now, in the headlights. Tall, hunched, moving like a storm, and it's not stopping. I'm flooring it, the van limping, when Roy does something stupid. He grabs his knife, says he's gonna fight it. I'm screaming at him to stay put, but he's unbuckling, leaning out the broken window. "Roy, no," I shout, grabbing his arm, but he's wild, slashing at nothing. The van swerves, and I hear a roar. Not human, not animal, just wrong. Roy's yanked back, his knife gone, blood on his hand. He's gasping, saying it grabbed him, and I know we're out of moves, running from a horror that's already won. We're barely moving now, the van coughing, one tire shredded. The highway's out there, somewhere, but it might as well be Mars. Roy's slumped in his seat, blood dripping from his hand, his face gray. I'm shaking, telling him to hold on, but my voice is hollow. That thing's still out there. I hear it, circling, its steps heavy and slow, like it's savoring this. The stench is everywhere, seeping through the broken window, and it's choking me, a reminder of how deep in trouble we are. I'm thinking about my van, my home, how it's become a coffin. I try the engine again, praying for a miracle. It sputters, dies. Roy's muttering about his ex-wife, how he should have fixed things with her. I'm not listening. I'm scanning the dark, looking for a way out. The flashlight's in my lap, beam weak, catching glimpses of trees and that shape, always just out of reach. I'm kicking myself for not turning back at the tracks, for letting Roy talk me into this. It's my fault as much as his, and that's a bitter pill in this terrifying mess. The van rocks, a slow, deliberate push from the back. Roy gasps, grabs my arm. I'm frozen, the flashlight shaking in my hand. The rear door groans, metal bending, and I know it's trying to get in. I'm screaming at Roy to help me barricade it, but he's out of it, mumbling, bleeding. I drag a crate against the door, my shelves toppling, photos of my old life scattering. It's pointless. This thing's stronger than us, stronger than anything. The van shakes again, harder, and I hear it. breathing, deep and wet, right outside. Roy's eyes meet mine, and for a second, he's clear. "Go, Ellen," he says, voice steady. "Run." I'm shaking my head, tears burning, but he's pushing me toward the driver's door. I'm yelling that I won't leave him, but he's already moving, grabbing a wrench from the floor, like it'll do anything. The rear door buckles, a claw or hand breaking through. Roy swings the wrench, shouting, and I'm out the door, my legs moving before my brain catches up. I'm running, sobbing, hating myself for it. The forest swallows me, branches tearing at my jacket. I hear Roy scream, sharp and final, then silence, worse than any sound. My flashlight's gone, dropped somewhere, and I'm blind, stumbling over roots. That roar comes again, distant but close enough to keep my heart racing. I'm thinking about Roy's harmonica, his dumb jokes, how I should have dragged him with me. The highway's nowhere, nothing but trees and that thing, somewhere behind me, taking its time. It's a horror I can't outrun, and I know it. I trip, hit the dirt hard, my ankle twisting. Pain shoots up my leg, and I'm crawling, gasping, toward a faint glow. Maybe a cabin, maybe nothing. The air's thick, that stench wrapping around me like a noose. I hear it now, steps closing in, slow and sure. My multi-tool's still in my pocket, and I pull it out, laughing through tears at how useless it is. I'm thinking about Portland, my sister, how I'll never see them again. Roy's gone, and it's my fault. I should have fought harder, been smarter. The glow's closer, a shed, door ajar. I drag myself inside, slam it shut, no lock. I'm panting, blood and mud everywhere, my ankle screaming. The steps stop, just outside, and I'm holding my breath, praying it passes. Something scrapes the wall, slow, deliberate, like it's toying with me. I'm whispering Roy's name, an apology he'll never hear. The door rattles, and I know it's over. This is my tragedy, my deadly mistake for thinking I could outrun the wild. Morning finds me curled in the shed, alive, somehow. A hunter spots me, calls for help. They find the van, what's left of it, torn apart, Roy gone, just blood and his wrench. They say bear, but I know better. I'm back in Portland now, my van scrapped, my spirit broken. That smell, those eyes, they're in my dreams, a disturbing shadow I can't shake. I should have stayed with Roy, died fighting. Instead, I ran, and I'll carry that guilt, that horror, until it buries me. The van's engine grumbles as I ease onto a rutted dirt track off Highway 93, deep in Idaho's Salmon Chalice National Forest. My name's Margaret Voss, I'm 50 years old, and I've called Reno my home base, though I haven't seen it in months. This beat-up Chevy Express is my world now. Bunk, stove, a patchwork quilt I've had since my 20s. It's late September, and the air's crisp, carrying the bite of coming snow. My old friend Paul, 53, a retired firefighter from Boise, is riding along, fiddling with the radio, static crackling as he hunts for a signal. Paul's the one who picked this spot, a remote pullout near Chalice, tucked against a ridge with a view of the Salmon River. He's all wiry muscle and bad puns, says it's the perfect place to unplug. I'm game. After years of desk jobs, I need the wild to feel alive. The van's a mess inside, coffee mugs and maps strewn across the counter, but it's home. Paul's unpacking his fishing gear, talking about trout like they're old buddies. I'm half listening, watching the pines sway, feeling this odd tug, like the forest sizing us up. I park the van on a flat patch, the tires crunching gravel. The sun's dipping, painting the peaks gold and red. Paul's already out, stretching his legs, saying we'll fish at dawn. I grab my sweater, step into the chill, and notice how quiet it is. No birds, just the river's faint rush. It's peaceful, sure, but there's this edge, like the calm's hiding something unsettling. Paul doesn't seem to notice, busy setting up a camp chair, but I'm catching myself scanning the tree line. We get a fire going, the crackle cutting through the stillness. Paul's telling stories about his firefighting days, how he once saw a blaze move like it was alive. I tease him, say he's got too much imagination, but I'm listening close when he mentions local talk. Bigfoot sightings, hunters spooked near Chalice. I laugh it off, call it bar talk, but his eyes flicker like he's not so sure. The fire's warm, but I'm pulling my sweater tighter, that tug in my gut growing. Dinner's chilly from a can, spicy enough to make Paul wince. We eat by the fire, the stars popping out, sharp and endless. I'm showing him my sketchbook, doodles of mountains, rivers, when I hear it, a low thump, like something heavy shifted in the woods. I pause, spoon halfway to my mouth. Paul hears it too, his head cocked. "Elk? Maybe," he says, but he's not moving, and neither am I. The sound doesn't come again, but it's left this ripple, disturbing and hard to shake. I'm cleaning up, scraping plates, when Paul grabs his flashlight, says he's checking the riverbank, make sure no critters are sniffing around. I tell him to stay close, half joking, but my voice is tight. He's gone a minute, two, and I'm alone, the fire dying down. The forest feels bigger now, pressing in. I'm thinking about locking the van, just in case, when Paul's back, his face weirdly blank. Says he found nothing, but his flashlight's shaking, and I know he's holding something back. Inside the van, it's cozy, my quilt, a lamp casting soft light. I show Paul the setup, how I rigged the battery to run my heater. He nods, but he's distracted, glancing at the windows. I'm starting to wonder if he saw something by the river. We've known each other forever, met at a community potluck back in Reno. He's solid, but tonight he's off, and it's getting to me. I double-check the doors, tell myself it's just new place nerves. We settle in, Paul on the pull-out bench, me in my bunk. The van creaks as we shift, and I'm trying to sketch, but my pencil's unsteady. Paul's quiet, his breathing uneven, like he's fighting sleep. Outside, the forest feels alive, watchful, like it's holding its breath. I'm telling myself it's nothing. Road life's full of odd moments, but that thump's stuck in my head, heavy and scary, like a warning I don't know how to hear. Dawn breaks cold, the van's windows fogged with our breath. I'm up, shivering, pulling on my boots. Paul's still out, his arms slung over his face, but he's restless, twitching like he's caught in a bad dream. I step outside, the air biting my cheeks. The fire pit's a mess, logs scattered, dirt kicked up, like something big rolled through. My pulse picks up. Could have been a bear, but the tracks around it aren't right, too wide, too deep. I'm staring at them, my breath catching, when Paul stumbles out, rubbing his eyes. He sees the pit, goes quiet, and that's scarier than any noise. We're supposed to fish today, but I'm not feeling it. The river's close, glinting through the trees, but the forest feels wrong, like it's holding a grudge. Paul's brewing coffee, acting normal, but his hands are shaky, spilling grounds. I mention the tracks, keep it light, but he just grunts, says it's probably nothing. I'm not buying it. He's the one who brought up Bigfoot last night, and now he's dodging. I'm thinking about packing up, heading to Chalice for a hot meal, but Paul's set on staying, says we came for the wild, right? We pack for the river, rods, a net, my old pocket knife tucked in my jeans. As we're locking the van, I spot something stuck to the rear bumper, a tuft of coarse hair, dark and matted, smelling like wet decay. My stomach twists. I show Paul, and his face hardens, but he brushes it off, says it's from a deer. Deer don't smell like that, and we both know it. I pocket the hair, not sure why, but it feels like a clue to something disturbing I can't ignore. The trail to the river's short, but it's rough, rocks and roots tripping us up. Paul's leading, his rod bouncing on his shoulder, but he's moving fast, like he's chasing something or running from it. I'm keeping up, my knife a small comfort in my pocket. He's talking now, too loud, about a fire he fought near here years ago, how the woods felt alive. I'm half listening, my eyes on the trees. There's a gouge in one, fresh, like something clawed it, high above my head. I stop, touch it, and Paul's voice falters. He sees it too. We're almost at the river when I smell it. That same rank odor, stronger now, like it's woven into the air. Paul freezes, his rod dropping to the dirt. I'm about to ask what's wrong when I see them. Prints, pressed into the mud, bigger than any boot, toes splayed weird. My heart's racing, and I'm thinking about a news story from last summer. A hunter gone missing near Stanley, just bones found. Paul's muttering, saying we should head back, but his eyes are darting, like he's seen something I haven't. I'm ready to ditch the fishing, but Paul's stubborn, says we're here, might as well try. I'm torn. Part of me wants to bolt, part of me trusts his gut. We push on, the river loud now, but it's not comforting. The prints keep going, parallel to the trail, like something's pacing us. I'm gripping my knife through my jeans, feeling like an idiot for bringing it. Paul's rod's shaking in his hands, and I know he's rattled too. The forest's too quiet, and it's getting under my skin, a scary itch I can't scratch. At the riverbank, we stop, the water rushing cold and clear. Paul's casting, but his heart's not in it. I'm scanning the opposite bank, where the trees are thick, shadows pooling deep. Something moves, a flicker, big, gone fast. My breath catches, but I don't say it. Paul's line snags, and he's cursing, yanking it free. Then we hear it, a low hum, almost a moan, rolling from the woods. It's not an animal, not wind, it's wrong. Paul's face goes pale, and I know he heard it too. I'm pushing for the van now, saying we'll fish another day. Paul nods, but he's slow, like he's fighting himself. We're halfway back when we find our trail marker, a bandana I tied to a branch, ripped to shreds, hanging like a warning. My mouth's dry, and Paul's swearing, his voice low. I'm thinking about that hunter, how nobody believed his buddies when they talked about screams. We're moving faster, but the forest feels alive, watching, and I'm kicking myself for not leaving at dawn. The van's close, I can see it through the trees, but every step's heavier, like we're wading through fear. Paul's muttering about his old crew, how they'd laugh at him now. I'm not laughing. Those prints, that smell, they're real, and they're close. I'm checking my knife, wishing it was more, when Paul grabs my arm, points to the ridge above. Something's there, a shape against the sky, too tall, too still. My blood runs cold, and I know this trip's gone from bad to horrifying, and we're not in control anymore. My boots skid on the trail as I pull Paul along. That shape on the ridge burned into my eyes. It didn't move, just stood there, tall and wrong, like it was daring us to keep going. My heart's pounding, a drumbeat of panic, and Paul's not arguing anymore. He's hustling, his fishing rod left somewhere behind us. The van's close, maybe 100 yards, but the forest feels like it's stretching, trapping us in this suffocating maze. That rank smell's back, thick enough to choke on, and it's scaring me, like a warning we ignored too long. We're almost at the clearing when Paul trips, goes down hard on his hands. I'm helping him up, my hands shaking, when we hear it, a deep, rumbling growl, not animal, not human, just pure horror. It's coming from the trees to our left, close, too close. Paul's cursing, scrambling to his feet, his face pale as ash. I'm scanning the shadows, expecting something to crash through, but it's just darkness, heavy and alive. My pocket knife's in my hand now, useless as it feels against whatever's out there. The van's in sight, glinting in the weak sunlight, but it's wrong. The front tire's flat, rim kissing the dirt. My stomach drops. We locked it, I know we did, but now this? Paul's muttering about sabotage, his voice cracking, and I'm thinking about those prints, how they trailed us. I'm yelling at him to check the spare while I dig for the jack, but my hands are clumsy, dropping tools in the gravel. That growl comes again, louder, vibrating in my chest, and I know we're running out of time. I'm under the van, wrestling with the spare, when Paul freezes, staring at the tree line. "Maggie, don't look," he whispers, but I do, and my breath catches, a figure, massive, half hidden by pines, eyes glinting like wet stones. It's not moving, just watching, and it's terrifying, like something out of a nightmare I can't wake from. I'm scrambling out, dirt in my nails, telling Paul to focus, but he's rattled, fumbling with the lug wrench. The air's thick, that stench wrapping around us, and I'm fighting not to bolt. We're halfway through changing the tire when something snaps, a branch, loud, deliberate, from the ridge. My head jerks up, and the figure's gone, but I hear it now. Heavy steps, crunching through brush, circling us. Paul's swearing, his hands slipping, and I'm screaming at him to hurry. My knife's on the ground, useless, and I'm kicking myself for not grabbing the tire iron instead. I'm thinking about a story Paul told last night, about a camper found torn apart near Darby, written off as a cougar. This isn't a cougar. The tire's on, barely, but it's enough. I'm shouting for Paul to get in, my voice raw. He's at the passenger door when we hear it. A roar, so deep it shakes the ground, coming from behind the van. I'm in the driver's seat, keys shaking in my hand, when I see it in the side mirror. That thing, stepping into the clearing, taller than any man, formatted with dirt and blood. Its eyes lock on mine, and my blood's ice. Paul's in now, slamming his door, yelling to go, go, go. I turn the key, the engine coughing to life, but it's sluggish, like the van's as scared as we are. The thing's moving now, not running, just walking, deliberate, like it knows we're not getting far. I'm flooring it, the van bouncing over ruts, but that roar comes again, closer, and I hear something scrape the roof. Claws, maybe, or worse. Paul's gripping the dash, saying we should have stayed in Boise, and I'm nodding, tears stinging, because he's right. And this is bad, horrifyingly bad. We're on the dirt road, trees blurring past, but the van's wobbling, the new tire not seated right. I'm cursing myself for rushing, for not checking the pressure. Paul's looking back, his face twisted, saying it's still there, keeping pace. I don't look, I can't. My hands are locked on the wheel, my mind racing with every mistake we made. Camping here, ignoring the signs, thinking we could handle the wild. The scraping's louder now, metal groaning, and I know it's on us, literally. Paul's shouting about a ranger station, maybe 10 miles off, but it feels like a pipe dream. The road's narrowing, branches clawing the van, and that thing's not letting up. I'm thinking about my sketchbook, my quilt, all the pieces of me I'll never see again. The roar splits the air right above us, and the van shakes, something heavy slamming down. Paul screams my name, and I know we're not just running anymore. We're prey, caught in a trap we didn't see coming, and it's only getting worse. The van's shaking like it's gonna tear itself apart, my hands white-knuckled on the wheel. That thing's on the roof. I feel it, a crushing weight, claws screeching across metal. Paul's screaming, his voice raw, telling me to swerve, shake it off. I yank the wheel hard, tires skidding on gravel, and the van fishtails, but it's still there, growling so deep it rattles my bones. The forest's a blur, pines whipping past, and I'm gunning for that ranger station, praying it's real. This is horror straight out of a nightmare, and we're stuck in it, running blind from something that doesn't quit. I'm flooring the gas, the engine screaming, but the van's limping, that half-assed tire change biting us now. Paul's banging the dash, shouting about a fork ahead, says one way's the station, the other's a dead end. My mind's spinning, I don't know which is which, and there's no time to guess. The roof buckles, a dent popping above my head, and I scream, swerving again. It's like that scene in Aliens, where the monster's always one step ahead, except this is real, and those eyes in my mirror are burning holes in me. I pick left, praying it's right, the road narrowing to a tunnel of trees. The thing shifts, sliding off the roof with a thud that rocks us, but I hear it hit the ground running, keeping pace. Paul's cursing, saying it's playing with us, like a cat with a mouse. My heart's pounding so hard I can't think. My quilt, my sketches, my old life in Reno, all feel like someone else's now. The stench is everywhere, seeping through the vents, and it's terrifying, a reminder we're not outrunning this. The van's headlights catch a sign, Ranger Station, 8 miles. Hope flares, but it's faint. Something slams the side, hard, and the passenger window cracks, spider webbing. Paul yelps, scrambling back, his arm bleeding from glass. I'm shouting his name, telling him to hold on, but the van's slowing, engine coughing. I'm kicking myself for not checking the fuel. Stupid, stupid. The gauge is near empty, and that thing's still out there, a shadow weaving through the trees, eyes glinting like it knows we're done. I'm weaving through ruts, the van groaning, when Paul grabs my arm, points ahead, a bridge, old and wooden, spanning a gorge. It's our shot, but it looks shaky, like one wrong move will send us crashing. The thing roars, closer now, and I feel it. A presence, heavy, like death itself. I'm thinking about Paul's firefighting stories, how he faced flames and won. This isn't fire. This is worse, a horror we can't fight. I hit the bridge, boards creaking, praying it holds, but the van's dying, lurching with every foot. Halfway across, the engine sputters, quits. We coast, momentum carrying us, but it's not enough. Paul's yelling to jump, run, but my legs are jelly, and I'm frozen, staring at the dark behind us. The bridge shakes, something's on it, steps heavy, deliberate. I'm fumbling for my knife, a pathetic little thing, when the rear window shatters, glass spraying. Paul's screaming, and I'm screaming, and it's here, reaching through, a massive arm, fur like tar, clawing at the air. We're trapped, life or death, and I know we're out of moves. I'm kicking the door open, dragging Paul with me, his arms slick with blood. We're off the van, onto the bridge, running blind, boards splintering under us. The thing's behind, its roars splitting the night, and I'm tripping, my ankle twisting, but I keep going, pulling Paul. He's heavy, slowing, saying to leave him, but I won't. Not yet. The station's gotta be close, but the forest's alive, branches snapping, and I know it's gaining, toying with us in this horrifying chase. We're off the bridge, stumbling into dirt, when I see it. A light, faint, maybe a building. I'm shouting for help, my voice breaking, but there's nothing, just us and that thing. Paul's gasping, his arm limp, and I'm half carrying him, my own strength fading. The light's closer, but so's the roar, and I feel it. Eyes on my back, cold and endless. I'm thinking about my sister, how I promised her a postcard. Stupid, but it keeps me moving, even as the world narrows to this terrifying sprint. The light's a cabin, door hanging open, no one inside. I'm dragging Paul through, slamming it shut. No lock, just a chair I jam under the knob. He's on the floor, blood pooling, his breath shallow. I'm sobbing, tearing my sweater to wrap his arm. But it's bad, too much blood, too deep. The thing's outside, pacing, its shadow crossing the window, massive and wrong. That stench fills the room, and I'm gagging, my hands shaking as I try to keep Paul awake. This is my fault. I picked the wrong road, didn't check the gas, thought we could handle the wild. Paul's eyes flutter, focusing on me. Maggie, go, he whispers, voice fading. I'm shaking my head, tears falling, saying we'll make it. But he's slipping, his hand cold in mine. The cabin shakes, a thud against the wall, wood cracking. I'm screaming his name, begging him to stay, but he's gone, eyes blank, and I'm alone with this horror. The thing roars, closer, and I'm scrambling, looking for anything, a weapon, a way out. My knife's in my pocket, useless, and I'm cursing myself for every choice that led here. I'm at the window, peering through a crack, and it's there, taller than the van, staring right at me, eyes like pits. My heart stops, but it doesn't charge, just watches, like it's savoring my fear. I'm thinking about Paul's puns, his dumb fishing plans, how I should have listened when he said to turn back. The door rattles, the chair sliding, and I'm backing up, tripping over Paul's body. I'm sorry, I whisper over and over, but it's too late. This is my tragedy, carved in blood and mistakes. I'm cornered, nowhere to go, when I see it. A trapdoor, half hidden under a rug. I'm diving for it, my hands slick, prying it open. The door splinters behind me, that thing's roar filling the air. I'm down the ladder, into dark, damp earth, crawling through a tunnel, my breath loud in my ears. The cabin groans above, collapsing, and I'm moving, not thinking, just surviving. I'm thinking about Reno, my quilt, all I've lost. Paul's gone, and I ran. Again, I ran, and it's a weight I'll never shake. The tunnel spits me out near the river, dawn breaking gray and cold. I'm limping, my ankle screaming, covered in dirt and blood. Paul's, mine, I don't know. I hear it, distant now, a howl that's not quite animal, fading into the trees. I'm stumbling toward a road, waving down a trucker who looks at me like I'm crazy. He drives me to Chalice, calls the cops. They find the van, the cabin, what's left of it. No Paul, just his rod, snapped in half. They say bear, but I know the truth, and it's horrifying. I'm back in Reno now, my van sold, my sketchbook burned. I see Paul's face every night, hear that roar, smell that stench. I should have fought, stayed with him, but I chose the tunnel, chose myself. The cops don't believe me, nobody does, but I know what I saw, what took him. It's out there, waiting, and I'm marked, carrying this grief like a scar. I walk past parks, hear kids laugh, and it's all wrong, because Paul's not here, and I'm the one who lived, and that's the cruelest twist of all. The van's tires crunch over pine needles as I pull into a secluded clearing off Forest Road 44 in Idaho's Payette National Forest. My name's Thomas Callahan. I'm 48 years old, and I've called Spokane home, though I've been roaming for years. This old Dodge camper's my castle, bunk, propane stove, a shelf of dog-eared sci-fi novels. It's early October, the air's sharp with frost, and the trees are a riot of red and gold. My friend Diane, 51, a former librarian from Twin Falls, is with me, sipping tea from a thermos, her scarf bundled tight. Diane's the one who found this spot, near McCall, swearing it's got the best stargazing. She's all wiry energy, always carrying a notebook for birdwatching or random thoughts. I like her vibe, calm but curious, like she's waiting for life to surprise her. The van's cluttered, maps and granola bar wrappers scattered on the dash, but it's cozy. I'm fiddling with the radio, catching static, while Diane's outside, snapping photos of the sunset. Something about this place feels heavy, though, like the forest holding its breath. I park the van, level it with a couple of boards, and step out. The clearing's ringed by pines, the Payette River a faint murmur nearby. Diane's pointing her camera at the sky, all pinks and purples, but I'm noticing the quiet. No squirrels, no wind. It's not right, and it's nagging at me, a little disturbing. I shake it off, blame it on too many late nights, but my gut's tingling, like when you know a storm's coming but can't see it yet. Diane's back, cheeks flushed, showing me a blurry shot of the trees. She's joking about UFOs, but then she mentions local stories. Bigfoot, hunters hearing weird cries near McCall. I snort, tell her it's just campfire talk, but her smile's thin, like she's humoring me. We've been pals since a book club in Spokane, bonding over Asimov and bad coffee. She's not one for spooks, so her bringing it up feels off. I'm starting to wonder if she knows something I don't. We set up a fire, the crackle cutting through the dusk. I'm hauling out camp chairs while Diane digs into her pack for marshmallows. We're roasting them, the smell sweet against the pine, when I hear it. A low thud, like something heavy dropped in the woods. I pause, marshmallow dripping, and Diane's eyes meet mine. Probably a deer, she says, but her voice is tight, and she's not eating. The fire's warm, but I'm pulling my jacket closer, that thud lingering like a bad note. Dinner's simple, ramen with some dried herbs I keep stashed. We eat by the fire, Diane scribbling in her notebook, me flipping through a novel I can't focus on. The stars are out now, sharp as glass, but the forest's too still, and it's getting to me. I'm thinking about locking the van early, just to be safe, when Diane points to the riverbank, says she saw something move. I squint, see nothing but shadows, but my pulse picks up, and I'm not laughing it off anymore. Inside the van, it's my sanctuary, string lights, a faded rug, my novels stacked neat. I show Diane the solar charger, proud of my off-grid setup, but she's distracted, glancing at the windows. I'm starting to think that thud wasn't random. We're joking about her bird watching, trying to keep it light, but there's this edge, like we're both pretending everything's fine. I check the locks twice, tell myself it's habit, but deep down, I'm uneasy, like something scary's waiting just out of sight. We settle in, Diane on the fold-out bench, me in my bunk. The van creaks as we shift, and I'm trying to read, but the words blur. Diane's notebook's open, her pen still, and I hear her breathing, quick and shallow. Outside, the forest feels alive, watchful, like it's got eyes. I'm telling myself it's just new place jitters. Happens on the road, but that quiet's wrong, disturbing, and I'm starting to think we've parked somewhere we shouldn't. Morning's gray, the van chilly and damp inside. I'm up first, my back aching from the bunk, brewing coffee on the stove. Diane's still out, curled under a blanket, her notebook half open on the bench. I step outside, the air sharp and freeze. The fire pit's trashed, stones scattered like someone kicked through it. My gut twists. No paw prints, just a weird smear in the dirt, wide and deep, like something dragged itself through. It's not right, and it's got me rattled, a disturbing little puzzle I don't want to solve. Diane wakes as I'm pouring coffee, her eyes puffy, like she barely slept. I mention the fire pit, trying to sound casual, but she goes quiet, staring out the window. She's usually chatty, so this is off. We planned to hike to a hot spring near McCall today, but I'm second-guessing it. The forest feels tighter, like it's watching. Diane's all for the hike, says it'll clear our heads, but her hands are fidgety, spilling coffee when she pours. I'm wondering if she's picking up the same bad vibe I am. We pack light, water, snacks, my trusty Leatherman tool clipped to my belt. As we're locking the van, I spot something caught in a bush near the river, a scrap of fabric, coarse and damp, reeking of musk and rot. My stomach lurches. I show Diane, and her face tightens, but she says it's probably from a hiker. Hikers don't leave stuff that smells like death, and we both know it. I stuff it in my pack, not sure why, but it feels like evidence of something scary we're not ready to face. The trail's narrow, winding through pines heavy with moss. Diane's leading, her camera swinging, but she's not snapping photos, just marching like she's on a mission. I'm keeping up, my Leatherman a small comfort, though it's laughable against anything real. She's talking about birds, trying to fill the silence, but her voice is flat, and I'm distracted, noticing scratches on a tree, deep, jagged, too high for a bear. I point them out, and Diane stops, her breath catching. Wind, maybe, she mutters, but it's a lie, and it's freaking me out. We're a mile in when the smell hits. That same musky rot, thick enough to taste. Diane's nose wrinkles, and she's scanning the trees, her camera forgotten. I'm thinking about a news clip from last year. A camper near Riggins who vanished, just a backpack found. My heart's thudding, and I suggest turning back, maybe hitting a diner in McCall instead. Diane hesitates, then nods, but her eyes are wide, like she's seen something I missed. The forest's too quiet, and it's crawling under my skin, a horror I can't name. Backtracking feels safer, but the trail looks different, branches bent, dirt churned up. I'm telling myself it's just us, but then we find it. A footprint, massive, pressed deep in the mud, toes splayed weird. My mouth goes dry. Diane's staring at it, her hands shaking, whispering about a library book on Sasquatch she read once. I want to laugh, say it's fake, but my voice sticks, and I'm remembering that smear by the fire pit. This isn't a prank, it's real, and it's close. We're moving faster now, Diane's notebook bouncing in her pack. I'm checking behind us, my Leatherman out, feeling like a kid with a toy gun. The smell's stronger, following us, and I'm kicking myself for not packing up last night. Diane's muttering about her sister, how she should have called her. I snap at her to focus, but I'm just as spooked, jumping at shadows. Then we hear it, a low hum, like a moan stretched thin, coming from the ridge above. It's not wind, not an animal. It's wrong, and my blood's running cold. The van's not far, maybe half a mile, but every step's heavier, like the forest's pushing back. Diane's slowing, her breath ragged, saying we should have stayed in town. I'm nodding, but I'm distracted, catching a flicker in the trees, big, dark, gone fast. My heart skips, and I'm gripping my Leatherman so tight it hurts. We're arguing now, hike or bolt, stay or go. Diane's saying we're fine, but her voice cracks, and I know she's lying to herself as much as me. We're almost at the clearing when Diane grabs my arm, points to a rock by the trail. It's smeared with something dark, wet, like blood but thicker, glistening in the light. My stomach churns, and I'm thinking about that camper, how nobody believed his friends when they talked about screams. The hum comes again, closer, and I'm pulling Diane along, my voice hoarse, saying we're done here. The van's in sight, but that smell's everywhere, and I know we've stirred something up, something scary, something that's not letting us walk away easy. My legs burn as I hustle Diane toward the van, that smeared rock seared in my mind. The forest's closing in, pines like walls, and that musky rot so thick I'm gagging. Diane's tripping over roots, her camera banging against her chest, but she's keeping up, her face pale as chalk. The van's just ahead, glinting through the trees, but it feels miles away, like we're stuck in some twisted loop. That hum's back, deeper now, a growl that vibrates in my chest, and it's coming from everywhere, a scary warning we can't outrun. We break into the clearing, and my heart sinks. The van's side door's ajar, swinging slightly, when I know we locked it. Diane gasps, grabs my arm, her nails digging in. I'm clutching my Leatherman, its blade flipped out, feeling like an idiot for thinking it'll help. Stay here, I whisper, but she's shaking her head, saying we check it together. My mouth's dry, and I'm thinking about a podcast I heard, some guy near Cascade who saw something. Nobody believed him, but I'm starting to. This is bad, horrifyingly bad. I creep toward the van, Diane right behind, her breath loud in the quiet. The door's open maybe 6 inches, dark inside, like it's hiding something. I'm reaching for the handle when we hear it. A snap, sharp, from the riverbank. My head whips around, and there's a shape, massive, half hidden by willows, moving slow. It's tall, too tall, with eyes that catch the light, cold and wrong. My blood freezes. Diane's whispering my name, her voice breaking, and I know she sees it too. A nightmare, real and staring. I'm pulling her back, away from the van, my mind screaming run, but where? The growl rolls again, closer, shaking the ground. I'm thinking trap, like those horror flicks where the monster's already inside, waiting. Diane's tugging me toward the driver's door, saying we've got to drive now. I nod, but my hands are shaking, dropping my Leatherman in the dirt. I'm cursing myself for being clumsy, for not bolting at that footprint. The shape's still there, not charging, just watching, and it's terrifying, like it's playing with us. We're at the driver's side, and I'm fumbling for my keys, my fingers numb. Diane's scanning the trees, her camera forgotten, muttering about her notebook, how she wrote down every sound. I'm yelling at her to focus, but I'm just as rattled, expecting that thing to lunge any second. I get the door open, shove Diane toward the passenger seat. The van smells wrong, musky, like that fabric scrap, like it's been marked. My stomach lurches, but I'm climbing in, slamming the door, when something thuds against the back, hard enough to rock us. The keys are in, but my hands are jelly, missing the ignition. Diane's screaming, pointing at the side window. There's a shadow, massive, sliding past, too fast for something so big. I'm thinking about that camper, how his friends said they heard screams, then nothing. The engine catches, finally, and I'm peeling out, gravel spraying. But that growl's right there, loud enough to drown the motor. Diane's gripping the dash, saying it's following, and I feel it. A weight, like death's riding shotgun. I'm swerving through the clearing, aiming for the dirt road. When the van lurches, something's caught under the wheel. Maybe a rock, maybe worse. I'm flooring it, the tires spinning, and Diane's yelling to keep going. In the rear view, I see it, tall, hunched, loping behind us, not even running hard, like it knows we're not getting far. My heart's in my throat, and I'm kicking myself for camping here, for thinking the wild was safe. This is horror, pure and raw, and we're nowhere near out. The road's rough, branches scraping the van like claws. Diane's crying now, saying we should have stayed in McCall, had coffee, anything but this. I'm nodding, my eyes locked on the path, but the shadow's still there, weaving through the trees, eyes glinting in the dusk. The van's rattling, my novels tumbling off the shelf, and I'm thinking about Spokane, my old apartment, how I'd give anything to be there now. Something hits the roof, a thud, heavy, and Diane screams, covering her head, and I know it's on us. We're tearing through the forest, the road barely holding. When I see it, a sign for a lookout tower, maybe 5 miles off. It's a shot, a slim one, but it's all we've got. The thing's still out there, pacing us, its growl a constant knife in my gut. Diane's muttering about her sister, how she'll never forgive her for missing her birthday. I'm telling her we'll make it, but my voice is hollow, and the van's shaking, metal groaning under some unseen weight, and I know we're in deep, disturbing trouble, with no way to turn back. The van screaming, tires chewing gravel as I gun it down the dirt road, that thing's weight still pressing on the roof. Diane's curled in her seat, sobbing, her hands over her ears as the growl tears through the air, so loud it's like the world's splitting. My arms ache, fighting the wheel to keep us straight, but the van's wobbling, something grinding underneath, probably that damn rock I hit. The lookout tower's my only hope, a faint chance at safety, but the forest's a cage, and this horror's got us cornered, a nightmare we can't shake. I'm dodging ruts, branches smacking the windshield, my novels bouncing across the floor. Diane's yelling about the tower, saying it's gotta have a radio, but her voice cracks, and I know she's grasping at straws. In the side mirror, I catch it, massive, loping through the trees, not even sprinting, just keeping pace with those cold, glinting eyes. It's like that moment in Jaws when the shark's circling, except this thing's real, and its stench is seeping through the vents, choking me with every breath. The van lurches, a tire blowing, my fault for pushing too hard. I'm cursing, gripping the wheel as we fishtail, scraping a pine. Diane screams, her camera smashing against the dash, and I'm shouting at her to hold on. The roof groans, claws, or something, scraping deep, metal curling like paper. I swerve, trying to throw it off, but it's steady, riding us like a predator on prey. My heart's pounding, and I'm thinking about Diane's notebook, her bird sketches, how stupid it feels to care about that now. A sign flashes by, lookout tower, 3 miles. I'm praying the van holds, but the engine's coughing, fuel gauge dipping low. I'm kicking myself for not filling up in McCall, for thinking this trip was a good idea. Diane's fumbling with her phone. No signal, of course, muttering about calling her sister. Something slams the side, hard, and the driver's window cracks, glass dusting my lap. I'm screaming, swerving again, but it's relentless, a shadow that's everywhere, and it's terrifying, like death's got my name. The road twists, dropping toward a ravine, the tower's silhouette just visible against the dusk. The van's dying, shuddering with every mile, and I'm yelling at Diane to brace herself. The thing leaps, off the roof, hitting the ground with a thud that shakes us. I think it's gone, but then it's back, lunging from the side, slamming the van so hard we tilt, tires lifting. Diane's screaming my name, and I'm fighting to correct, but we're sliding, gravel giving way, and I know we're screwed, caught in a life-or-death spiral. We crash through brush, stopping hard against a tree, the van groaning, steam hissing from the hood. Diane slumped, blood trickling from her forehead, but she's breathing. Thank God. I'm shaking, grabbing my Leatherman. Its tiny blade a sick joke. The growl's close, vibrating through the wreck, and I see it, standing on the road, tall as a nightmare, eyes locked on us. I'm whispering to Diane, telling her to stay down, but my voice is shot, and I'm fumbling for the door, thinking maybe I can draw it away. I'm out, legs wobbly, waving my Leatherman like an idiot, shouting at it to come get me. It steps closer, slow, deliberate, its breath hot and foul, like rotting earth. Diane's stirring, yelling my name, but I'm focused, trying to buy her time. The tower's so close. I see its ladder, rusted but solid, but the thing's faster, cutting me off, a wall of fur and muscle. My heart's in my throat, and I'm thinking about Spokane, my old book club, how I should have stayed put. This is bad, horrifyingly bad, and I'm out of tricks. Diane's out now, limping, pulling at my arm, saying we run together. I'm nodding, but my eyes are on it, watching us like we're already dead. We're backing toward the tower, every step a fight, the ravine yawning to our left. The thing roars, a sound that cracks my soul, and I'm running, dragging Diane, her blood slick on my hand. It's behind us, steps shaking the ground, and I know we're not making that tower. Not both of us, not like this, not with this monster breathing down our necks. We're stumbling through the dark, the tower's ladder just yards away, but my legs are lead, and Diane's fading, her breath ragged. The thing's close. I hear it, feel it, that stench wrapping around us like a noose. I'm pushing Diane ahead, telling her to climb, but she's heavy, slipping, her head wound bleeding worse. My Leatherman's gone, lost somewhere, and I'm cursing myself for yelling at it, for thinking I could play hero. This is my fault. I picked this spot, ignored the signs, thought the wild was ours to take. Diane's on the ladder, slow, one rung at a time. I'm below, shoving her up, my hands slick with her blood. The thing's at the base now, staring up, not climbing, just waiting. Its eyes are pits, endless, and I'm frozen, my mind flashing to Diane's notebook, her neat handwriting, all she'll never write. I'm yelling at her to keep going, but the ladder shakes, a claw swipes, missing her but splintering metal. She screams, slips, and I catch her, barely, my arms burning. But it's a losing fight, and it's terrifying. The tower's platform is close, maybe 10 feet up, but Diane's out of it, mumbling about birds, her sister, anything but here. I'm climbing with her, half carrying every rung of battle. The thing roars, shaking the tower, and I feel it. Claws scraping below, testing the steel. I'm thinking about that camper, how his friend swore something took him, and nobody listened. I'm listening now, but it's too late, and this horror's got us pinned, a tragedy I can't rewrite. We're almost there, the platform in reach, when Diane slips again, her weight pulling us both. I'm holding on, screaming her name, but she's limp, eyes fluttering. The thing's climbing now, slow, like it knows we're done. I'm begging her to move, but she's whispering, "Go, Tom." Her voice soft, final. I'm shaking my head, tears blinding me, but her hand lets go, and she falls, hitting the ground with a sickening thud. The thing's on her, and I'm screaming, frozen, watching it drag her into the dark, her cry cut short. I'm on the platform, alone, the tower creaking under me. It's below, circling, roaring, but it doesn't climb higher, like it's satisfied, like it won. I'm sobbing, hating myself for letting go, for not being stronger. The night's endless, cold, and I'm stuck. No radio, no help, just Diane's blood on my hands. I'm thinking about her camera, her marshmallow roasts, how I should have turned back at that footprint. This is my mistake, deadly and raw, and it's ripped everything away. Dawn breaks, gray and merciless. A ranger finds me, half dead from cold, babbling about Diane. They search, find the van, wrecked, her notebook torn apart, no body. They call it a bear, say I'm lucky, but I know what I saw, what took her. I'm back in Spokane now, my van scrapped, my novels burned. That stench, those eyes, they're with me, every quiet moment, a disturbing shadow I can't escape. I should have fought, died with her, but I climbed, and now I'm the one left, carrying this grief, this horror, like a wound that won't heal.